No, I'm angry. Like, this piece of shit didn't want to talk to me. Asked if he fucking passive aggressive shit. Fucking middle. I went and showed them that, and I literally was there last week showing them I had issues with receiving emails. Best account had issues. Yeah.
Can't be
And then they
Mr.
tried to
CS
say there
like
was
that.
text message. Showed them that I did not start text message.
And Doge Knight. Nah, this one's DD Dynamic Doge. Because you like DDs. Got him.
Yes, the Diamond Dwarves.
Did you like my dwarf beard, Steve?
Yes, I did. But Bob, back to my question: can artificers learn good, Barry?
No. They also don't exist anymore. No, I deleted them. They don't exist anymore. Find a different DM for an artificer. The laziest class they ever frickin' made. No, that's the problem.
Look, Bob just doesn't want us to play as the McRiblin.
They literally...
It's so good.
So it's a mind goblin.
Mind Goblin these notes.
Got him.
Spider-Man!
But which Spider-Man? Right, but which Spider-Man does he like?
That's true. That's important. Well,
Which
there's
one?
All Spider-Men.
Does he like the Amazing Spider-Man? Does he like the Superior Spider-Man? Does he like the Fantastic Spider-Man? Does he like Spider-Ghost? Does he like Spider-Man Noir? Does he like Spider-Man 2099? Does he like Miles Morales?
Whoa! You can't be saying that. You're live, Cat. What the hell?
He can't hear him.
Truly an epic gamer moment, chat.
Yeah, they're just angry because I called them out for being willfully obtuse when I said Spider-Man and trying to pretend like I'm meaning one of the other things that aren't actually just Spider-Man.
Fuck them up.
He likes Spider-Man as a whole.
Which is making them triggered. He does like Spider-Man as a whole.
Okay, well, which Tom Holland?
See, that would have been a better question.
Or the last one.
Actually, I don't know that I've asked him which one his favorite is.
Oh, no.
Well, clearly Tobey Maguire's the only right choice.
You mean Bully Maguire?
That's Maguire.
I thought he answered the phone that way.
Do you like how they brought Tobey Maguire's dance into Marvel Rivals? And if you pair it with twerking Venom, you get a rather interesting scene.
No, I don't think I will.
I don't think I will either.
I'm not saying you have a choice in the matter.
Well, I do.
Yeah, it's
I
not
need a
playing Marvel
better
Rivals.
adult.
That's right. I don't look at that.
Don't look at it.
He used to be wounded. Yeah, remember that.
What?
Hey, yo.
Oh.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, the go live tweet is posted, chat. Do me a favor and give it some love. Grab today's artwork so that I can get away from these papagas.
What do you think he meant by that, chat?
I meant gamer words.
Understandable, chat.
では、前に出ます。
Alright. How's it going, everybody? Did I not ping the server? I pinged the server, right? I didn't ping the server. Shimata. I'll just disappear. Okay. Get this party started, chat. Hello, everybody. Again, sorry for being late. Got to do better about that. It has just been a problem for me lately. Oh, I did not get today's artwork over here for you guys on YouTube. There you guys go. There is the link. It's 2:30 in the morning. Oh, feel free to go to sleep. You do not have to stay up for me. But there is today's artwork. Go give the artist some love. Like I said, I did get the go live tweet out as well. And I am back. It feels weird now, like coming back after being gone on a Wednesday, because it's like there's an actual tangible break in the week that is not something I'm normally used to. Okay, sorry. I was just reading something. How's it going? Seems this to be the last Liz we will get unless Lasagna gives us a summer Liz. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the last Liz. You guys got to understand, we've also had final Hanoji, and it was not the final Gouda Gouda. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say you need to understand that when they use the term final or the end or anything like that, they don't mean that shit. And they know it. Like, they themselves would tell you that. Took a single to get Liz. That's all good. Hello, IA. Hello, JC. My night's going well. Hello, Belmonte. Did I have a good day? I did. Did you guys see the pictures of what I ate? It was quite nice. Let me pull it up here real fast. but it was a Michelin star rated restaurant. And I know, like, this, if you don't like raw food like sushi, this looks really weird to you. Okay. Age, thank you for the resub. Appreciate it, my dude. Thank you for the 61. It's a long time. But it was so good. So this had like ponzu sauce on it. It was a spicy ponzu sauce. God, the flavors were so rich. They were so much richer than most other like sushis that I've had at places. This was bluefin tuna, and it was a tamaki, which is like a seafood wrap. Sorry, seaweed wrap, not seafood. Obviously, it's seafood. But it's like a seaweed wrap, so it's almost like eating, almost like an Asian taco or like an egg roll, a little bit, if you will. But instead, it's got like functionally sushi makings inside. It was really, really good. I talked about what each one had. This was the spicy tuna roll, which was one of 3 rolls that we had, which was really, really just delicious. Every roll that we had, like, was super flavorful. And I'm not a huge, like, mayo guy, but Japanese mayo I can usually stand. But this was, like, perfect. It was, everything was just perfectly flavored, and I was surprised by that. And these were the drinks that we had. She wanted to try out both of these drinks, but she couldn't decide. So I was just like, fine, I'll just get both and we'll just share. And this was the Japanese iced tea. I don't remember what the liquor was that was in it, but it was very good. And then this was the like pear shochu, and it was also amazing. I actually like the shochu better, but mostly because while this was really good, I felt like because it had cinnamon in it, it didn't go as well with what we were eating, but it was still like excellent. Very, very solid. I pretty much want to taste that. It was really good. So like it was an expensive place. It was a Michelin star rated restaurant, and I would still I would love to go back. It was absolutely fantastic. So I had a blast from talking with her. She also liked it. So it was definitely nice. Because I know she was telling me, she's like, oh, you don't have to take me to such an expensive restaurant. And I was like, no, I want to. Like, just in the sense that I feel like date night should be fun. I feel like it shouldn't just be you doing the same thing over and over again. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we don't always have to go to a super expensive restaurant, but like, sometimes it's nice. It's nice to like go to a place that's actually like upscale and high class and stuff like that. Back when I ate it, I loved yellowtail tuna and rainbow rolls. Stuff drenched in sugar, mayo, and fried batter just doesn't qualify as proper sushi, though. Well, that's what I would say. Is like a lot of the places you go to that are like just kind of normal run of the mill like sushi places, they stuff their stuff with like cream cheese and avocado, and it's so much that you don't actually feel like you're tasting the sushi, and it kind of cheapens the experience. As opposed to like that, you could tell every ingredient was fresh, everything was perfectly paired with other items, and like just the sheer flavor of the fish itself, you could tell there was a world of difference with that. Like every single bite of like meat that I bit into, super good. Super good. Lurk tax back to work, no problem. Thank you for the lurk tax. Again, chat, if you guys are lurking out there, do me that favor. Say something in chat. It helps. I don't know why Twitch made that decision, but they did. I love sushi so much. I like sushi. I have a problem with sushi where if I eat too much of it, it gives me a massive stomach ache. So I've learned that like, while I can eat a lot of sushi, I shouldn't. And I have to like tell myself, okay, enough is enough. So like I said, we basically got 3 rolls. And then we got 2 tamaki, so like 1 each. And then we had what they call basically a taste thing, which was like a appetizer. That was what the first picture was that I showed you. So, like it was It was really, really good. And like I said, while it was expensive, it was worth it. It was worth the price just for the experience and the flavor. So something in chat, thank you. And hello everybody. Hello Robo, how's it going? Also, sushi's raw fish. The chance something in there is low, but not zero. That's true. I will say though, like if you are going to a place like a Michelin rated restaurant, you're pretty good for that. You're not gonna get a Michelin star if you don't if you're not excelling in just about every aspect of the restaurant business, and one of those would also be like cleanliness. So I think if you're gonna like eat something like that, that's ironically enough one of the best places to do so, as opposed to like, yeah, you go to your like hole in the wall redneck sushi place. Yeah, that might not be too great. And I say that as somebody that lives in an area of the world where there are redneck sushi places. So definitely something you have to be careful about. For the greater good, ensure to make your Twitch mandated lurker post. Yes. It's so dumb. I've seen again, like almost on a daily basis now, I see major streamers just complaining about it because they're ironically enough, like while I can be impacted by that chat, they're the ones that are actually kind of more impacted because more and more of their chat are actual lurkers. Like they have greater percentiles than smaller ones. Like if you go into a stream of 5 people, odds are like 3 of those people are active. If you come into my stream, odds are like probably half the chat is lurking. And if you go into somebody bigger than me, odds are like 75% or greater of the chat is lurking. So they're the ones where it's like, oh, you're not counting this as a viewer? Cool, my numbers are plummeting. What the hell are you doing? And the reason that matters is because a lot of the times for advertiser purposes, your numbers are what they gauge both interest and willingness to like contract with you, as well as how much they will pay you. So I know that's why the big streamers are pissed about this, is because it's actually impacting their bargaining power. And they're going, no, your concurrent viewership average isn't high enough. We're not paying you that, like whatever stated rate you've been going by. And that's probably pissing them the hell off. Because it feels like they just got demoted at work. Now that I'm diabetic, I have to be super choosy about where I get sushi. Most places sweeten the sushi rice, and the whole roll becomes radioactive to me. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that, but that definitely makes sense. Grocery store sushi especially. Yeah, I mean, grocery store sushi is going to be like they're gonna do things to it to help it preserve, so that makes sense. So yeah, I would only get like freshly made ingredients and only from a place that you've like been able to like vet what they're putting in it. I'm sorry to hear that. That's unfortunate. All right, chat, let's just go through here. This is currently JP. This is I believe the currently highest active node on JP. It's only like a level 60 node. I'm just surf mowing it. Any specific C on the event for JP? I believe the current node is bronze, so no. I mean, other than that, like you could do bronze or silver and it would be good, but I'm not going to take damage C right now. There's not really any point. Although I do believe, well, you know, I say that. I don't know if the damage C also helps with the points. It might. And if that's the case, I probably need to be taking it myself. It does? Okay, sweet. So I'll go grab that right now myself. How dare lurkers like to listen to Cad's voice to fall asleep? I mean, I know that's meant as a compliment, but that sounds like I'm putting you to sleep, which is not good, right? But no, I think in that regard, it's perfectly fine. Oh, what the heck is going on here? How about no? That's partially why. God, it's I don't want to complain about this, but it feels like we get so much junk in our mailbox now, and it's all good things. It's just like they're giving it out all in like ones. Because you can see it's like, oh, now I'm down to 372. So that means I just pulled out 28 items out of my mailbox from not checking it for like 3 days. I'm a brave man. Airport sushi all the way. I feel bad for anyone that gets on the flight with you. Let's grab that. Cat ASMR Roth, yes. Take it as a backhanded compliment. No, it's fine. I don't actually. I just always chuckle because you're not the first person that said that before. So I just like it basically it makes me laugh every time I hear it. It's like, oh, I just like to fall asleep to the stream, and I'm like, so you're saying I'm boring, but it's not. It's 100% you're just trying to support, and I get that, and I appreciate it. I had airport sushi in Hawaii before. It was really good. Hawaii, so when I was a kid, I used to not like fish at all. And Hawaii, like going to Hawaii on a family vacation changed that. Because what I had when I was there was like ahi tuna and mahi mahi. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, where has this fish been? And it was really funny because I remember as a kid, like, before I went to Hawaii, like everywhere had like cod and like other white fish, but it didn't have a whole lot of flavor. And then after coming back from Hawaii, not like right away, but I noticed like within a couple of years, I started noticing like mahi mahi started becoming like actually like popular and in a lot of like stores and restaurants. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because I've never been a fan of like just straight cod. I've always felt like cod is a very unflavorful fish in that regard, which may be why people like it. People like things that are less fishy. But to me, it's like if I'm gonna eat fish, I want the flavor. I want it to actually have some good like body to it. Yeah, that is the 4-star. What do I equip? The detached Mecha Ellie head, yes. Will I be rolling Liz? I don't know. She's a very interesting unit. I don't think I particularly need her on JP, so the answer is probably no. But do not let that fool you that she is like somehow a bad unit. She is very good. My JP account's just also very good. And I've explained to you guys why I'm in the current status mode of like not really wanting to spend very much on the game. Not that I dislike the game in any way, shape, or form, or that I feel like the game is somehow like going downhill, but there is uncertainty for the future. And I am also financially at the current point in time at a point where like I've had to tighten my belt a little bit. So I'm just being very picky about what I choose to spend money on right now. But it's not a problem. And in that regard, I would say, like, yeah, she's absolutely somebody that you guys should be considering because she does a whole lot in terms of her capability. But we'll go over her here later in the stream. I'll give you guys the actual numbers. That way you guys can understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. European viewers represent? Go for it. Insert seeing someone drowning while you're dying from thirst comment. Yeah. No fear for the ones after I eat Arby's? Okay. He is so good. He's amazing. Ahi's definitely one that like I can eat raw, and it's just fantastic. Yeah, I was eating fish sticks when I was a kid, and as I got older, I couldn't stand fish. can't even stand the smell. Yeah, and see that's where I would say like part of that is because like fish sticks are just that generic white fish. So you just get like so blah about them. And it was only when I started eating different things. Like I would tell you guys, and I'm dead serious on this. If you ever get the opportunity, even if you're somebody that you feel like you don't like fish, try ahi tuna. Try it. You might be surprised. It does not taste like other fishes, and it's very robust. I refer to it as the steak of the sea because that to me is kind of what it tastes like. So I've heard people use that with I think it's swordfish. Swordfish has the texture of a steak. But to me, swordfish does not have the flavor of one. Whereas ahi tuna has the flavor of one to me. Hello, son. How's it going? Hi, Angora. Thank you, Perch, for the lurk tax. Hello, Shadow. How's it going, guys? Sorely tempted to say fuck whoever. Fuck waiting for whoever in JP to fix the Railfront crashing for an A and swap to emulator and get it ran and done. So is it just the final one that's causing you to crash, Jay? There's fish here? Yes. Swordfish is full of mercury. I mean, I assume it's to such a level, it's like, it's probably not a bad thing. Usually, like, if there's mercury in your food, it's not enough to actually do anything. Huh. Sorry, I just saw something interesting. Am I going to be going over the buffs too? I can, if you guys would like. I don't have numbers on that. I didn't ask Avalon to get them for me. But we could definitely talk about it. Which I will say, I'm very happy that they did Liz buffs, because to me, most of the Liz's, it's going to sound like I'm like trashing Liz here, but I'm not, okay? But like, most of the Liz welfares were not in a good state when they released. Like, even if you go all the way back to like the original welfare in the game, which is Halloween Ellie, technically it's Saber Lily, right? But like, Halloween Ellie was the first actually released welfare, okay? Halloween Ellie, even back then, was not good compared to her contemporaries. That was a problem. So, like, that has been an issue, and I feel like Ellie has deserved her time in the sun a little bit at this point. So, they definitely need to take care of them better. I do believe, as much as like some people find the character annoying, she is one of the faces of the franchise. She is a character that a lot of people do like. It's stupid of them to leave that character in a poor state. And I really mean that. And I think you can apply that to a lot of popular characters. What was I staring at? I was seeing something on Twitter. It was what's the name of the account? Is it like Abroad in Japan or whatever? Which is a guy I've watched several videos on him, but I guess he was talking about the recent state of things in Japan. So I just was reading the post about it. I kept having to deal with crashes on the last Grail front as well, usually as a battle started. Yeah, I mean, I would say do whatever you guys can to get it done. It's worth it. Even if you have to like temporarily transfer over to emulator, just be safe with that. Create yourself a nice transfer code. Make sure it's a good one. I definitely don't want to take the 5-star CE. Game crashed in the Chernunus fight every NP. I bet is on something similar with the big map. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't remember this being an issue particularly on JP with this Grail front, but it's very likely that irregardless of whether or not it did exist over there, that the like problem could exist simply due to the different coding state that the North American server has relative to JP and what it had at the time. Because remember, we get stuff a little bit out of order, especially quality of life, and that can affect things. So. Chris Brown's pretty alright. I like the videos I've watched of him. I haven't really ever had a problem with it. I feel like he's always been a pretty chill dude. But there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in Japan right now, and there's a lot of like, frankly, I'm getting kind of annoyed. I've started to see it online. I don't know if you guys have, but there's a lot of people now, whenever like anything anime is brought up, that people just start getting really racist against Japan. Like they just start calling it a country full of like pedophiles and saying it's all a bunch of people that are like sexual assaulters and stuff like that. And it's like, it's not good, right? Like, I think when you demonize an entire race like that, again, it is what it is. It's racism, right? It's like they'll sit there and they'll make these claims and they don't realize what they're saying. They think they're like being one of the good guys. I'll say this, chat. You know me. I'm not somebody that likes anything to do with any sort of like pedophilia or anything like that. But people are beginning to try to liken all of anime to that. And that is just so incredibly stupid and naive that I just don't even want to like deal with that type of person. I do believe there is at least, room to talk about that as an issue within like anime culture. But if you're just going to say all anime culture is that way, it's just stupid. Nobody should listen to those types of people's opinions. And I guess what I'm seeing a rise of is I'm seeing a rise of people that are just like very quick to judge. They jump to an extreme position and conclusion, and they don't ever take any time to figure out anything. But that is, unfortunately, that's your brain on social media. Social media is just terrible for us in terms of being able to talk with each other and rationale and reason with each other and actually like have a conversation about a topic. Social media reduces everything to gotcha moments and rage baiting and trolling, and it's not good. TLDR, Chris had to explain that every city has good and bad spots. Yeah, absolutely. And I've had this talk with the girlfriend about how should I put it? Like, there's certain places where she's told me that she's gone, and I would not necessarily want to go to those places. Like if you told me like, hey, I'm gonna go there, I would be like, no, it sounds awful. But there is some logic to the idea that, in theory, everywhere you go can be safe or unsafe depending on where you go and how you conduct yourself in those locations. Okay? Like, for instance, chat, I remember being on the tram in Rome. And you would think, oh, it's Rome, right? Like, that's a really big city. Like surely everything's fine. No, I literally watched a girl get off at one of the stops, and a guy, before the doors closed, sprint after her And the only reason he didn't do anything to the girls because he tripped and fell right as he was going out the door. Everyone saw him bust his ass. He got up, started towards her another like step or two, and then just ran right back onto the subway. Okay? So it does not matter where you're at in the world. There are bad people. There are bad locations. There are bad neighborhoods. It is what it is. If you don't pay attention to that, you only have yourself to blame. So it's like, it's the same thing in Japan. And it's also going to be one of those things too where, yeah, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. When in Japan, do what the Japanese do. If you don't obey local customs and traditions, and then you find yourself in trouble, whose fault is that? Is that, that part of the world for not thinking as you do? Or is it you for visiting that part of the world and not realizing that they think differently from you? It is what it is. Johnny Somali's getting his sentence soon. Yeah, I don't think that like Korea should be the one to sentence Johnny Somali. But I'm also gonna say, do you know who should sentence Johnny Somali? It should be us. His country of origin. Okay. Why do we let people go to other countries and stir the pot and do all the stuff that they wouldn't be allowed to do here without legal repercussions? Of course, there's going to be legal repercussions if you try it elsewhere. It's one of the big things that gets talked about a lot over here is that like people get away with shit all the time in the United States. That if you try that stuff in another country, your ass will be in jail. And then you'll sit there and you'll be like, what? How did that happen to me? And it's like, of course. Why would anyone tolerate that? I don't know why, like, in that regard, America is really dumb on some of those things. But, then there's the flip side of, like, I think I saw that finally the British police are going to stop going after what people say online as, like, a crime because there's too much. They can't actually police it all. And they're like, okay, we're going to keep things to just actual crimes only. And I'm like, so that means that you're admitting that you were enforcing the law on people that weren't breaking the law. Like, hold on, there's something wrong there with that. But it is what it is. Did you hear what happened in Ireland? They went ballistic? No, I haven't heard anything in Ireland. Let them sentence him, and then when he gets out, let us sentence him too. He probably won't get out is the problem. But no, I'm not going to say that like Johnny Somali doesn't deserve to be punished. He does. It's just like a little bit, that's a stain on us. Like, we should be the ones that are being like, nah, extradite him. We'll handle this shit. Like, it looks really bad for Americans to go overseas and to just act like assholes and like destroy things and mess with people and stuff like that. It's like there was, at least in the past, there was always the idea that if you're overseas that you are a representative of your country and your culture in that regard, and you should conduct yourself accordingly. You should try to be a like good representative and not make people think, wow, like all of those people are assholes. Serious crimes only, yeah. The reason they want to extradite is because plea deals. Oh no, I mean they're not going to extradite Johnny Somali because they want him. Like with the shit that he pulled over there, they're like, nah, we're putting his ass away for life. And I'm dead serious. They're probably going to put Johnny Somali away for life. If he's extradited back to the US, money will wash away his crimes. I don't think it would wash away, but the issue that you do have is sometimes when you pull someone out of the jurisdiction for which they committed the crime, that it's not punished as harshly, simply due to the fact that, like, the hurt is not there, as opposed to, like, him getting punished in Korea for shit that he did in Korea. Oh yeah, the Koreans are pissed. They want to make an example out of him. So, it is what it is. Also, did I did my roll. Okay. Fafo? Yep. Good old Fafo. Nothing of value has been lost. I'd like to think for every person that, like, they should be given a second chance. I think the problem with Somali is that he has been given numerous chances, and at every turn he hasn't taken it seriously because he's figured that he can just weasel his way out of it, and that he can just lie and kind of be like, no, it's not going to be a thing. And then it's a thing. And then he goes, shit. It is what it is. So in that regard, that's where I'm like, a little bit, I don't care if they do punish him. There's a point where you have to say, like, you've been given enough chances. You, at every turn, refuse to take it seriously. Now you have to find out. Like, the world tried not to punish you to the extreme extent, and you just kept pushing the button. Nothing you can do about that. Making things worse after he knew he was going to court. Right. And that's like, I don't understand that mentality, but some people, chat, they just have to learn the hard way. They have to find out through actual, like, experience rather than the threat of it, or rather than seeing someone else go through it. Some people, they will not accept it until it happens specifically to them. And this applies to many things in life, not even just like punishment. It's like if you were to tell someone that you saw a ghost, some people would be like, yeah, okay, right? Like, and they would just never believe you until they saw a ghost. And that's just the way the world works. That's just how people think and act. But again, with this sort of thing, you realize it's like he had to go through several points of failure and still had not learned. Like, points where he had been, you know, like, read the riot act in effect and said, like, look, you're going to be in very serious trouble. And he's like, no. And it's like, yes. X-axis has F around, Y-axis has find out. And you'll find that he's done both in excess. Yep. You say that, but I've seen people go through the hard way and they learn jack all. Yeah, do you know why they didn't learn jack all? It's either one of two things. Either it wasn't enough still, or they don't really have a choice. So that is to say, what if you put someone in jail for stealing? Okay? And they get out of jail. And they steal again. You put them in jail for stealing. They get out of jail a couple years later. Steal again. You put them in jail for stealing. For, you know, multiplicative sentence at this point. Guy gets out 20 years later and he steals again. You're going, what the heck? Why would that happen? I don't know. Is he broke? Does he have nobody to go back to? Is there no point in his life? Is his life easier if he's in jail? So there are many reasons why people will, quote, not learn the lesson. But at the end of the day, it usually boils down to, again, one of those two. I'm a court employee and I'm supposed to be impartial to litigants, but straight to jail. I mean, give him his day in court. I don't see any reason to be, you know, to not be impartial. I just like obviously he's got a mountain of evidence against him. That's his big problem. And this is the issue with streamers in general. A lot of the time I think streamers don't realize that like everything they say or do is online and the internet is forever. So it's like, there you go. Someone's gonna find out. Somebody's gonna hold it against you. Free healthcare in jail, maybe? Yeah, who knows? 3 square meals a day. Room and board. Like, some of that may be stuff that they would have a hard time securing otherwise. There's a protest in Japan against tourists telling them to go back to where they came from because of disrespect to Japanese culture. Yeah, I don't think they should be protesting tourists per se, but they're not wrong. I mean, like, tourists have done actual quantifiable damage to like the shrines and stuff over there, and that's what should just not be tolerated. So to me, my stance would be shut the shrines down. Don't let tourists go to it. It is what it is. Oh, you want to see it? Nope. You ruined it for everybody. I don't know if you guys knew this, but for years you used to be able to like go all the way up to Stonehenge, walk between the hinges, and like touch the stones. Not anymore. Do you know why? People did dumb shit. That's why. Like, you can't trust people with that stuff. The protesters? No, this is well before the protesters were a thing. That's sad to hear. Yeah. Reminds me of Logan Paul's forest trip. Yeah, it's apparently that was all staged, by the way. Like that wasn't legit. But that is still fucked up, right? Like that's not something that you do. There are rocks, damn it, get your own. But I want my rock. The majority of inmates were there because they would and could not take responsibility for their actions. Yeah, I'm not going to say that you're not going to serve time, right? Especially depending on the gravity of the crime, even if you like admit to it and you are repentant and stuff. But that usually does go a long way. It's why I don't know if you guys remember this sort of thing if you've ever watched like any sort of like trial show or anything like that. But there's a reason that like lawyers always are telling you to like dress your best possible, to be respectful, to be penitent and show remorse and stuff like that. It's like because that goes a lot further with a judge and a jury than it will if you are flippant, dismissive, not taking it seriously, not dressing well, and you just look like you are slime and act like you are slime. Yeah, of course, they're gonna bring the long arm of the law down on you. Yeah, the suicide forest is real. It's just that particular video was staged, apparently. Did you hear about ones with people writing on the pyramids too? It doesn't surprise me. I told people this. I loved going to Greece in the past. You got to go to Athens and you got to see the Parthenon. Sorry, I had to remember, is it the Parthenon or the Pantheon? The Pantheon's in Rome, the Parthenon's in Greece. And the Parthenon's great. The issue with it is that it is defaced quite a bit. So already a lot of the Parthenon is replica that they have tried to quote unquote rebuild. But irregardless, it is graffitied to all hell. And that's such a shame. It should not be that way. But that's just the way, like, Athens is. Out of all the cities I've been to in Europe to date, Athens is the dirtiest, the most unclean, and the most like graffitied out of all of them. And it's kind of absurd, but it is what it is. So it's not that I wouldn't go back per se, but it was more like I never really felt safe or like everything was being run well in Athens. From multiple entitled Spanish tourists getting up to the top of the Tenochtitlan pyramid. Yeah, I just again be respectful. The way I would put it towards people is thus: you want to go see that, fair. I would also want to go see that historic landmark or that amazing like location, right? Why would you deface it so that future generations can't also enjoy it? Like, it's just stupid. Greek here, I do believe that you're correct about Athens. I'm not saying it to like denigrate Greek people. It's just that was my experience in like all of my travels. And it was just, I was saddened by it. Admittedly, some of the time that I was in Greece was right while they were having the riots over the whole like EU funding issue and stuff. So that was also why I didn't feel particularly safe in Athens. Because I still remember like being on my tour bus, looking down the street and seeing like the mob marching on the adjacent street. So it was one of those where it's like, but I know it's not like that all the time. Parthenon was cleaned up when I was there this summer. Oh, that's actually good if that's the case. I hope so. Like, I hope they've done that because it is such a shame that people would go there and do that shit. It's like, oh yeah, let's go graffiti the one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Huh? That's just as again, it's like those people are assholes. That's the only way I can think about it. That was Naples for me. Amazing food. Don't look too closely at the harbor. So Naples is infamous, but not for that. Naples is infamous for pickpockets. But yeah, it like Naples was also one where it was kind of like beautiful, but there were some issues. And to be fair, even parts of Rome. Like Rome was a very beautiful city, but there were even parts of it that were seedier or graffitied or something like that. So, and to be fair, yeah, as an American, full disclosure, you go to Washington D.C., you go to New York, you go wherever, same deal here. It's just it's sad. That's the thing I look at is like, no, we shouldn't have that. That experience is kind of common here. Oh god. Or stop saying you work on it. Yeah. But how else will they know I was there, Cad? Take a picture. It'll literally last longer. Like, sounds like main character syndrome, people disrespecting history because they are here and more important. Yeah. Some people just are asses. That's really all it is, and they have to be the most important person at any given moment. And like, yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's still rough neighborhoods there. Why would you destroy them other than you feel themselves? I'll be honest, I don't really know. Like I said, other than as chat has mentioned, it's like a main character syndrome thing. It's like they feel like they have to leave their mark. But I think what is actually important is that, again, people take it to heart that like this is something that has been here a long time. And if you would like it to remain standing for future generations so that they can also marvel at it and view it with wonder and see how far humanity has come, that they should also do their best to take care of it. Like it's the duty of every generation to pass on the knowledge and the capabilities of the former generations. Wait, what are we talking about? Am I getting a little too philosophic for you? We were just talking about people defacing like monuments and stuff and cities. I think we got on this entire subject matter because of we were talking about Japan and the stuff that's been happening there. How they've had issues with tourists and stuff. Well, that's different because of war and stuff. I mean, I'd still even say that that's a tragedy in and of itself. Like, you would hope that there wouldn't be like some sort of knockdown, drag out like thing that that destroyed important stuff, and that irregardless that could be avoided, right? Like if war were to break out today in like Egypt somehow, you would not want like the pyramids and the Sphinx destroyed. You would want them to be preserved. If war were to break out in France, you'd want the Eiffel Tower preserved, right? Like to me, that's just how I look at it. Is like it sucks even if something did happen in the past in history, and you would hope that that's not the case. But you're definitely right. Some people won't fight fair. Some people will just go ahead and take advantage of that sort of thing. On an island in the sun and having fun, but I can't control my brain. I rolled NP1 Liz just to complete the Liz collection. I see someone was asking me if I'm going to do that earlier, and it's just... I don't necessarily need every Liz, so... I do like Liz, though. I don't think Liz is a bad character by any stretch of the imagination. I think Liz is one of those characters that people have a fun time hating on, but she's actually a really good character. Right, CAD, we now have SSD storage. Future generations will know we are all degenerates. I think to some degree, there's also a contingent of people that just kind of want to wipe out everything that we've done in the past, and I don't like those people. I think some people believe that the only way to move on from something is forgetting about it, whereas I ascribe to the mentality that like you will just keep repeating the past if you try to forget about it, as opposed to if you remember it and you learn the lessons of it, then you will be Oh, hold on. Okay. Then you will be less likely to repeat the same issue. $10 in the making would do that. Just so his name would be remembered in history. Yeah, it's dumb. And to me, that's the epitome of why you don't remember those people. It's the same deal whenever there's like some sort of like tragedy or something like that. It's like if someone perpetuated it, you don't listen to them. You don't list their name. You don't like read their manifesto. It's one thing to know why they did it. It's another thing to give them their 15 minutes of fame. GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference. Yeah, I believe so. Has said that leading games industry companies who choose to skip the event are sending a message to developers that they don't care. You know what? Good. Skip the event. Because the GDC has been peddling all sorts of agenda stuff that they're trying to push into video games. I don't like the GDC. That's the problem with them. They are a actual organization designed to make developers act out and try to become more activist and derail the products that they're making. And I think that's a problem in the industry. I think that's why you have AAA games that are releasing and immediately flopping, and then you have solo one guy dev projects that, you know, the dev spent like 3 years on and he did it all himself, and it's like selling millions of copies. Like that's the state of the world that we're in at this point. Some devs get that, but the people making the decisions are kind of the problem. Because I think, like, when we talk about devs, I'm not going to say, like, every rank and file dev is a good person. I'm sure they're not. I'm sure some of them also are very agenda-driven themselves. But I do think at the same time, a lot of developers just want to make a good game. They want to inspire and, like, create for the people that, you know, are the next generation, because they themselves were also inspired to do such things by the prior generation. And I think they just want to make a fun product that people will enjoy and that they can kind of stake their name on. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the issue is when people are, you know, losing sight of, hey, let's make a good video game, and more, let's push a narrative. Let's convince people how they need to behave and act. Got one Megabonk dev, Giga Chad, yep. It's basically trying to use video games to push propaganda, yep. Like, for instance, I know a lot of people didn't like Sweet Baby, and Sweet Baby is usually some of the people that talk at GDC every year. Like, that should tell you everything you need to know, chat, for why GDC can go F itself. And, like, you just don't need to care about anything that GDC actually says or does. Kirby Air Writers Direct is the greatest example of there is still good on AAA game devs. Yeah, not every AAA game dev is bad. I think you have a lot of issues. And I think if you look at developers as a whole, and when I say this, I'm going to use developers as in, like, dev studios, okay? you have a lot of different forces. You have gamers, and a little bit, gamers are the outflow. We provide feedback to the dev studios, but gamers are the consumer, okay? You have individual devs. You have stockholders. You have upper management. It's supposed to be a U. And you have... How should I put this? I'm just going to call them producers. Okay? Dev studios have all of these things. Comprising them, making them up, pushing them, pulling them, you name it. Their end goal is to take money from production, create a product that pleases gamers, so that gamers will give them back money so that they can please their shareholders. The problem that we have is some of these arrows should be two-way arrows, just like the gamer one. But nowadays, most of the arrows are one-way. Production is saying, we're only going to give you the money if you put things in the game that we want. Shareholders are sitting there saying, your returns weren't good enough because you didn't make it a live service game or create hundreds of DLCs. Upper management is sitting there going, hey, I have an agenda. I want to see this in the game. And devs might also be like upper management, or might just be like, hey, I just want to make a good game. And the hilarity is, what everybody here in this needs is they need money from the gamer side of things. So guess what? This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. To a degree, chat, even this doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in this equation is right here, which is the consumer. It's the idea, and I know every retail person in this stream right now is going to cringe when I say this, but it's the idea that the customer is always right. You know why the customer is always right? Because the customer has the money. And you want that money. Now, does that mean customers don't say some stupid, dumb shit? Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you work retail, you guys know that. Okay? But the customer is always right. You should be making a product for the customer. You should be absolutely trying to please the customer, not your shareholder. You know why you don't please your shareholder? Because if one shareholder gets pissed off at you because you didn't do the thing they wanted you to do, they'll sell their shares and another shareholder will take their place with a new set of demands. So you don't care because shareholders come and go and they will match your energy as a company eventually. You will get shareholders that actually are in line with your way of thinking if you just actually ignore them. Production, I hate to say it, this is the major pitfall of every single one of these dev studios. They keep going to places like Vanguard, BlackRock, or even at this point Microsoft for funding. And then they put all these stipulations on what needs to be in the game. Do you know my stance on this if I were one of these dev studios? Fuck them. I'll get money somewhere else. And they're going to sit there and they're going to say like, oh, no, but you can't. It's not that easy. It's like, I'm sure it's not easy. But fuck them. If they're going to sit there and dictate what can and can't be in your game, do you know what I would do? I would literally turn right back around, go straight to the internet, and go, this is what Microsoft wants me to put in their game. I told them no. This is what BlackRock told me to put in the game. I told them no. And do you know what's going to happen? Their reputations will tank. Your reputation will skyrocket. And a little bit, this opens up another path for you, which is that you, instead of actually securing a proper source of funding from some other entity, you can also open up the potential for crowdsourcing your funding via something like Kickstarter, a la Baldur's Gate 3. If you have a good idea and you can't get the funding for it, and you know that idea is going to sell like hotcakes and that people are going to be interested in it, ask them to fund it. They will. They will literally give you the funding if your idea is good enough. So tell those, it's the same problem that we're having right now with the payment processors of like Visa and MasterCard. They don't like your game. Cool. Fuck them. Don't let them do anything in connection with your game. Make a new payment processor. Find a new payment processor. Who cares? If they don't like it, ignore them and go around them. It may be an annoying hurdle, but it is far better in the long run because that stance only hurts them, not you. Same thing with upper management. Is upper management being subversive and making shit choices? Are they prioritizing things that don't help the game? This is actually the hardest one because the devs can tell you that upper management is fucking up, but the board can't. Why can't the board? Because the board doesn't know how to actually do this stuff. That is quite literally why upper management exists. The only real rein-in on upper management is if you get some sort of third-party outside consultant to come in and be like, upper management is fucking up. But every one of these studios should have someone like that at this point. Because I'm sorry, upper management in most of these games is ass. And that is, I think, the issue that we are facing. I think the old guard video game developers are now mostly retired. And I think you now have a bunch of people that are in upper management that are trying to push an agenda and not just make a fun game. If your goal is to make a fun game, your head is in the right place. If your goal is to do anything other than that, your head is up your ass. And that's the truth. They probably have you NDA'd, though. They can't have you NDA'd if you're not under contract, Strom. Until you sign something with them, you're not NDA'd. But that's exactly my entire point with this, is like, it's painfully obvious why AAA studios are suffering at the moment. And I'm making it sound way too simplistic. It's not a simple thing. But it is so obvious that they are caving in to things that are changing what their product is, and the target demographic simply does not exist. They think that they can convince a whole bunch of gamers to like their shit product, but gamers just want what they want. And if you don't align with that, you're already just inherently doing it wrong. And I'll give you guys an example of this. Let's say I wanted to commission an art piece from an artist, and the artist delays me, kicks the can down the road, finally gets back to me 6 months later and says, here is an apple. That's not what I asked for. I asked for an art piece, not an apple. Obviously, my need is unfulfilled. Obviously, I'm not happy about that. Will I commission that artist ever again? No. I will also demand my money back. And I will also be very upset for having wasted my time. That is the games industry in a nutshell right now. The games industry is the commissioner. The studio is the artist. And they're not producing art. It's that simple. You are trying to commission art, they are not making art. They are making some other product. And you're never quite sure what that other product is. And that is why the industry is having issues. You want to look at why AAA is having problems? That's why. Versus the indie developer that still has the spirit of, I just want to make a fun game and make some money off of it. And lo and behold, that still works. Because that is the core essence of what drives video gaming as an industry. It would exist if the devs were still in Ubisoft? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, chat. Let me grab the stuff here. Did I watch season 2 of this? I think I did. Later, Lucy. It's from Ultraman. The Netflix Ultraman show is actually pretty decent. We're gonna go and see Chainsaw Man movie. I didn't much care for the Chainsaw Man anime. Like, it was... I definitely see why people like it, but I think both it and Jujutsu Kaisen got really, like, too edgy for me. Where it felt like they were rug pulling and stuff just for the sake of doing it, rather than trying to actually, like, set up a good, proper story long term. Bet you guys like Lizzie the Rock. Wait, hold on. Let me refresh myself. Right. A t-shirt's definitely going to be a thing. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the sub, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you for the 79 months. Chat, can we get some love? Time difference is annoying, yeah. Oh, that's right. Isn't Europe already... Haven't you guys already had daylight savings time? I know you can become evil. Yes. Okay. Chat, it's been a hot second. I haven't gotten to properly record a video with you guys in a while, which actually let me turn on the recording and see if it bricks things. Because I don't know if it's gonna start to make me like choppy. It feels like it already is. Feels like it's already degrading. Hands okay. I mean, it obviously looks like shit, but 1 FPS CAD incoming. Yeah, I'm never really sure what causes it at this point. I'm playing Final Fantasy 14. It's all good. I'll turn it off. I'll just have to ask a rocking background for the review. I mean, that's up to you. I think let's just stick with the black background for now. But assume CPU usage. Actually, don't know. It may just be an issue with OBS. Liz basically being Satania will never get old. I think you mean the other way around. This is the nice thing about a lot of Fate stuff. Fate stuff is usually older at this point. And it's so funny. Dude, every single anime season now, there is at least one anime that is Fate derivative. What do I mean? Chat, if you watch it and you're a Fate fan, you're like, there it is. There. This mangaka, he read Fate. Like, you see it in every season. There's at least one. The Leo meme, exactly. And it's like, it's fine. It doesn't bother me, but I always have a good chuckle about it. Like, I know, what was it? Hey, Chad, are you guys watching, May I request one last thing? Which is great, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's a very fun anime. But even in that one, there was already immediately a point, like in the most recent episode, where the guy uses his special eye power and immediately like shouts out clairvoyance, basically. And you're like, uh-huh. Not that like that sort of thing hasn't been in anime before, but it's like the term usage and everything like that, you start to notice it's like, oh, there's way too much here for it to be just a coincidence. She's fantastic, she is. One Punch Woman, yep. Oh yeah, Keijo absolutely has a Fate reference in it. But it's good. Like, I actually think that's nice. It's a sign of just how impactful Fate is. But it's also kind of crazy when you start to think about it that Fate has now been around long enough that like generations of people have grown up with it now, such that like the youngest generation that is now coming in and actually getting to write their own stories and getting that produced in anime are people that were inspired by Fate, which is like crazy when you start thinking about that. Like, holy crap. Yeah, we're going to be coming up on 30 years eventually. The JSDF used Holy Grail War name codes. Did they? I feel like you might be right though. Fate is basically the Mazinger of History Battle Royale. Yeah. And like I said, it's not a problem. It's just something that I find really funny. Okay. Let's get this started, chat. I gotta fix my mic again. I'm gonna have the time to fix it. Hey guys, my name's Kadroth, and today we're going to be talking about our newest Elizabeth Bathory. That's right. Here with... No, that's a terrible start. My brain. Been long enough since I've done this that I can't think of the proper opening. Okay, let's restart. Hey guys, my name's Kadroth, and today we're going to be talking about our newest form of Elizabeth Bathory. That's right, here with the new Halloween event on JP, we have yet another form. And this one finally is going to be our first 5-star Liz. Now, the event is functionally termed the final Halloween event, but obviously we've had things like Final Hanoji and stuff in the game before. I know people are really quick to doom and gloom, but I don't think this necessarily means that this is going to be our last Halloween event ever. There's just a lot of theming in it, and I think the devs would absolutely tell you that this is one that they are drumming up for that reason, but not that it's actually going to be the last one ever. But either way, Liz is going to be our new banner unit from this event, and she's definitely an interesting one. Obviously, we already have a 4-star Lancer Liz, and that is food for thought as to, why give us another one. But this one is going to be a single target Buster Lancer, and definitely as a 5-star that will separate her from some of her other forms. Now, this Liz is actually pretty darn good, and I'm going to talk about her performance here in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to go ahead and briefly talk about kind of where she stands in that regard and why you guys should consider her, because she is a unit that has a ton of charge. And for a single target, for somebody that can actually hold their own in terms of damage output, that's definitely a good thing that you like to see. Now, a lot of you guys will have pretty robust Lancers already at this point in time in the game, so it definitely doesn't have to be somebody that you have to roll, but it's somebody that I think you guys should be taking a look at and deciding for yourselves whether or not you want her. A lot of people are already looking at her design and calling her Lizzie the Rock, basically, kind of terming her similar to Bochi the Rock. And that is definitely due to her design and the aesthetic that they were going for. But it's absolutely a great reference at this point, and I really like what they did with her various Ascension forms, because I do think that they actually tried to go all out with this one, particularly her final Ascension art, which kind of shows all the forms of Ellie. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about her stats here before we move on to the kit, the Noble Phantasm, and then things like the damage numbers and comparisons. So right off the bat here, you guys can see she has about 12k attack. Again, she is a Lancer, so this is not particularly like the highest thing imaginable, but it is a really, really nice attack stat. This is fairly high up there for 5 stars. Her HP value, on the other hand, maybe a little bit more anemic at only 14k, but I don't really see this being a problem due to her kit, so I think you guys will be fine in that regard. She is Star Attribute, which is another really nice thing, as that doesn't ascribe to the normal triangle of man, heaven, and earth, so this will make her a little bit more effective in that regard. And she does have Star Absorption of 89, which is a little bit under average Lancer one, but not by too much. Her star generation rate here is 11.8, which is perfectly fine. Her NP charge attack rate is 0.55, which as a Buster unit may actually seem a little bit low, but I'm going to say her hit counts are going to make that perfectly okay. Her NP charge defense is actually the standard for Lancers, which is 4%. Her death rate is 23%, which is pretty much right on average for all units. And alignment is chaotic evil, which should come as no surprise to anybody. For basic traits, she has the Dragon, Elizabeth, Hominide Servant, Humanoid, Normal Servant, Seven Night Servant, and Weak to Intima Elish traits. And if she is in Ascension 3, specifically, she will gain Levitating Servant and Space Flightable Servant, which are interesting in their own right. Looking at her deck here, you guys can see, kind of like I mentioned before with the NP charge attack rate, she has pretty stellar hit counts. She has double buster, double quick cards here, which is actually pretty similar to the standard Lancer deck. And it is something to denote that, again, because these hit counts are all pretty stellar, that she shouldn't really have too much of an issue with generation off of these cards. Realistically, her worst hit count here is actually her extra attack, which is the only one that is at its average of 5 hits. Everything else is above average, which should bear out as a really, really nice, solid sort of star generator and NP generator. Her active skills, looking at her first one as we move on, starts out here with an increase to the party's attack for 3 turns. It's definitely nice. It's on a 6-turn cooldown here for this skill at max rank, which means you will have that capability of doubling it up. And if you do have something like the 5th append around, you can definitely get to it even faster, allowing you to double stack it in turns 1 and 2, respectively. You'll also increase her own buster performance for 3 turns. So again, the attack up was up to 20%. The buster up is up to 30% here. It's definitely nice that both of those can be double stacked. She's also got the increase to her own critical damage of an additional 30% for 3 turns. And has a debuff on attack buff for 3 turns that whenever she does attack, she will inflict burn with 500 damage for 3 turns to the enemy. So that's definitely a nice thing if you wanted to use her alongside something like, say, Honey Lake, or anything that you could take advantage of with fire damage, as again, the current event CE on JP actually does also have a power modifier for fire damage. It is interesting in that regard. Her second skill here is going to be where she gets a little bit of that survivability. It's why I said the 14k HP is not going to be too big of an issue. She has 2 attacks over 3 turns invincibility, which is definitely nice. Big problem with this skill is going to be its 7-turn cooldown, but hold on, we can maybe deal with that. She'll also grant herself a buff on attack buff for 3 times 3 turns that will overcharge the party's NP by 1 stage for 1 time for 3 turns when she attacks with her buster cards. This is definitely nice. This will give her just a little bit more oomph with the overcharge, and she'll also charge her NP gauge based off the number of Elizabeth units and Elizabeth stacks on the field. This is an interesting thing because this does not impact necessarily enemies, but this does mean that basically if an enemy had the Elizabeth trait, that they would also still count towards this. So if you had 3 allies in your party that had the Elizabeth trait and 1 enemy that you were facing that was an Elizabeth as well, that would count 4 times. But this actually gets a little bit more convoluted, and I'll come back to it here in a second as we move on. Basically, at max rank, this skill will grant you 10% charge per stack. Looking at the third skill here, this is actually her true charge skill. This will charge her own NP gauge by 30% and the party's gauge by 20%. Notice how, unlike a lot of other skills that work this way, this specific one does not exclude her. So this does, right off the bat, just make her a 50% charger within her own right, but also a 20% party charger, making her have a little bit of applicability in terms of utilizing her in sort of like multiple damage dealer setups alongside other units. So there's definitely some food for thought there. Again, with this, she's now going to also have the capability to grant the party the Elizabeth trait for 3 turns. That's what I was referencing with the second skill. It's why I opted to move on before we talked about it a little bit more. So basically, you're going to want to use the third skill before the second skill whenever possible. Why? Because you're going to give your entire party the Elizabeth trait. Then when you pop the second skill, you're going to get stacks of charge based off of how many people have that trait. This is also interesting because if we look here in the notes, basically this contains both allies and enemies. I'm actually surprised though, fandom did not denote one particular interesting aspect to this. Elizabeth herself will count twice. That is to say, she herself is an Elizabeth unit. Also, a stack on her would count as a second source of this. So you can, even in a solo environment, get 2 stacks functionally from that and allow yourself the 20% charge. There's a really, really interesting aspect to things because it also means you could put another Ellie in and the same thing would be true. So you could definitely abuse this a little bit for even more charge. I actually had to make a correction to my initial tweet about her, talking about her, like how she was kind of an 80% charger due to this in combination with the third skill if you're using her in a normal party setup. Because she's actually a 90% charger because you'll always have her herself if you're utilizing the skill. So that means that you could get 3 stacks, basically, 1 for each of your allies, including Liz. And then because Liz herself is an Elizabeth unit, that's another stack for her. So you're actually getting 4 stacks. So that's kind of how it works, and that's why, in combination with the third skill, instead of just being a 50%, she's actually a 90% charger. Now, the downside to this third skill is going to be that it has a 500% chance to reduce the party's mental debuff resistance by 50%, except herself for 3 turns. That is not a good thing. You need to be very careful of mental debuffs, especially if you're going to use this skill. It does appear like they purposely made that one pretty strong in order to kind of allow you to get like charmed and stuff like that in case they needed a way to shut down Liz effectively. And that is definitely something that you can exploit to your advantage should you encounter her. But on top of this, at least, she will also gain crit stars for herself of 15. It's not a whole lot, but really, if we're utilizing her in Buster synergistic comps, we really don't need to have too much for her. Looking at her passive skills here, I'm not going to say too much about it. She has Magic Resistance A for some additional debuff resistance that'll help her. And she has Independent Action EX for 12% extra critical damage. Definitely a nice thing there. Moving on to talk about the appends, there is one that absolutely stands out, and that's going to be mana loading. Why? I just told you she is in a normal party set up a 90% charger. Therefore, you don't even have to lure the mana loading. You just want it unlocked if that's the case. And so in that regard, this probably needs to be your first expenditure for your appends. But special shout out to the 5th append here. Why? Because the 5th append, as we already mentioned, would allow her first skill to be doubled up even faster. And it would also allow the second skill to be doubled up. That is to say, we'll pull it back down from a 7-turn cooldown to a 6-turn cooldown in that scenario. This is maybe another thing to consider. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, necessary to make her loop, but it is actually interesting that this is a possibility. So I do believe those two are the first and foremost ones that you want to look at. The anti-foreigner attack damage aptitude, not really a big deal for her. The extra attack finesse could be solid for her. Same thing with the special attack finesse, as both of them can just contribute to just normal overall performance. But we're still not done. Talking about her Noble Phantasm now, she actually has a slightly different Noble Phantasm depending on whether or not she's in Stage 1 or 2 or Stage 3. So in the first 2 stages, she has, again, a Buster single target NP. Same thing in Stage 3, technically. Both of them are 8 hits. But where the difference is going to lie is in the effects. So start out with here in Stage 1 and 2, she deals damage to one enemy. She deals super effective damage against dragon enemies. She will reduce the enemy's gauge by 1. Notice how it doesn't have a percentage, which means it's a guaranteed effect. She will inflict Curse with 2,000 damage for 5 turns to one enemy, which means you can also potentially exploit any sort of Curse modifier type of craft essence with her. And she will charge the NP gauge of Elizabeth allies by 10%. Guess what? That also includes her. From here, she will gain a whopping 30 crit stars. But as we mentioned before, you probably aren't going to need that too much. But this is interesting because maybe if we put her in a non-farming setup, now she has a regular source of stars if you leave her in one of the first 2 stages. She, from here, will also have an overcharge effect that increases her NP damage for 1 turn, activating before damage goes out. Base 10%, but remember, you do have that overcharge effect that can increase that, so that is a nice thing for her. How does it differ, though, if we look at Stage 3? Stage 3 is the exact same in every single way, except it's going to change the charge that you give to Elizabeth allies to 20%. This does open up some interesting possibilities for that. Also, do denote that what goes away because of this is we do not have the stars anymore. So you're not going to get the 30 crit star bomb. Similarly, another interesting effect here is that the overcharge effect on the Noble Phantasm itself actually does increase up to a base of 20%, which means it actually will scale better in this form. So it is food for thought as you guys start trying to consider which form to use her in. Personally, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I actually wish the devs would stop tying gameplay performance to ascension stages. It gets really annoying, especially if you like one stage over the other appearance-wise. So in that regard, I feel like they need to stop doing this sort of thing, or at least allow us some sort of ability to change regardless of what ascension form we actually leave them in for gameplay reasons. But again, it is what it is, and it's just how they designed her. So it is not the first time or probably the last time that they're going to do this with a unit. Now, as for what craft essence you should probably be looking at with Liz, obviously 0% starting charge is kind of the way to go. So things like Honey Lake can be really good for her. Obviously, Black Grail is just going to be really, really strong. If you don't have something like Black Grail, there are plenty of other alternatives like Angel's Song, Heaven's Feel, Dragonkin, you name it. So there are decent CEs that you can start out at 0% charge and still get a ton of firepower out of. And why are we going to want that? Well, simple. That's what's going to make her competitive in damage. But first, let's go ahead and let's look at some of those charge scenarios that I mentioned. On screen now, you guys should see them. And basically, we have 3 different scenarios for you guys. The first one is going to be if you're in Liz Ascension 1 or 2. You're going to want to run that double Koyanskaya Oberon setup potentially just for a lot of firepower and a lot of capability. Liz is a single target. You usually don't want to necessarily 3-turn with a single target, but Liz is going to be really able to handle that quite well. She'll be able to brute force it quite a bit. And all you're really going to need is that mana loading append unlocked as long as you have everybody else's skills taken care of. It's definitely a nice thing. Even by wave 3 there, you don't even care that you're getting the 10% per turn on the back end of the NP because it's not going to change anything charge-wise since you have so much brute force charge in this composition. But we do have 2 other scenarios that we think you'll find to your liking for Ascension 3. So the first one here is going to be the exact same as the prior one. You're just in the 3rd Ascension at this point, and the charge breakdown works the exact same. You're just getting more charge. Why would you do it this way? Simply more firepower is going to be kind of the way to go there. But you don't have to do things this way. That is to say, you might be able to mix in someone like a Merlin if you wanted a more challenge-oriented setup rather than somebody like Oberon that is kind of a 3 turns and done type deal. So in this scenario, if we're working with Merlin, the charge works almost the same, except now we're going to have Merlin with his 30% charge, in case you guys had forgotten that, combining with the 20% regen on the back of Ascension 3 Liz's Noble Phantasm. Combine that with the remaining 50% charges on wave 3, and you're actually good to go, and that's still enough charge. So you guys can see she is going to work out quite well, and you could even work in other units like Koyan Sky of Darkness, you name it, but obviously these sorts of things can get really, really interesting and malleable in that regard. So because Liz has so much charge capacity, she should work with a ton of units. Like I mentioned before, you could definitely work her in a multiple damage dealer setup, or you could try to get her, with maybe some sort of starting charge, have somebody else charge her up to full and get 2 Noble Phantasms out of her instead of just 1. There are numerous ways you guys can go about like this. Let's take a look, though, at Liz's actual raw damage numbers. So this is neutral damage numbers. It is no outside external buffs. It's just Liz with her own skills under her own power in a neutral environment. You guys can see the damage scaling for her is actually quite nice, particularly if you're up against a dragon. And you do have these scaling and P levels here. She is a limited SSR. It's not going to be somebody that you're necessarily going to have in P5 of. But if you're somebody that really likes Liz, you can absolutely go for it. And you guys can see you would get a ton of firepower there. However, this does change, as on the right, we have the damage numbers if you're in Ascension 3. As we mentioned before, Ascension 3 has a little bit more firepower there with the overcharge. And you can see it does make a difference as you get a little bit of a bump up in damage performance. So it is really, really nice. And that's where I'm going to say a little bit, you probably want to go with Ascension 3 most of the time for raw damage output, but it really does just depend on what you're trying to do. For instance, if you are in a more challenge-oriented scenario, those extra stars might be a really big help to you. Now on screen, you guys should be able to see the actual true composition numbers. These are numbers for when you are in a proper comp with supports and a craft essence equipped and all of that. They're still neutral in terms of what type of enemy we're facing, but these are with actual buffs at play. So you guys can see quite a bit of ramp up there as Wave 3 at NP1 with 2x Koyan Sky and Oberon and a Black Grail going to deal a whopping 704k neutral damage, which is definitely nice. That's excluding the man buff that the Koyan Skies can provide, or the dragon super effective niche that she has, or again, combining those two. So definitely unlikely that you would encounter something that is a dragon, but also man attribute, but still really, really interesting to see damage capability on this. Now, we also have her one-shot damage, because again, that's where a lot of single targets are going to be kind of at their strongest, is when they're just, hey, kill that thing now, this turn. So you do see this with her. The damage numbers are going to fall off a little bit. Obviously, she can still produce solid results, but she's not going to have the same type of firepower that she maybe had in the 3-turn scenario. Definitely quite a bit of boostability there, as you got the 530k at MP1, man attribute coming in at 662, and dragon coming in at 795, so almost 800k there. But how does this stack up against her competition? Well, let's take a look. Here is Bima's number. So Bima, as you guys can look, does have the capability of 3-turning. He needs to use cranking instead of a Black Grail, and you can already see the damage fall off because of that when we start looking at Wave 3, if you are 3-turning with him. However, if we start looking at one-shot damage numbers, raw, Bima is a little bit more. He can get a little bit of that synergy with Koyan Sky for the man niche, but comparing back to her, he is a little bit stronger in that. So where Ellie would pull ahead is in one-shot damage if you're up against a dragon. That's where she would be better. But honestly, she's still pretty darn competitive with him in that regard. It's not a huge ordeal. Brynn is another one that we would compare to, as she's also another single-target Buster Lancer. You guys can see her damage numbers, especially in a 3-turn, fall off quite a bit. She's still also somebody that can use cranking, but this is definitely a little bit of a penalty for both having the Beloved One attribute and also the fact that she is just a much, much older unit by comparison between those other two. So as you guys can see this, the Beloved attribute will get her up to about 554k. Unfortunately, again, Ellie's just going to beat that even outside of niche. And so as a result, I don't think that's necessarily the best of ordeals. You do have the possibility of synergizing the Beloved One with man, getting up to about 690k. So that would be a little bit more synergistic there. But again, Liz at man attribute is at 871. So this unfortunately means that Brynn just really could probably use some love in the damage department if we're looking at it from a 3-turn scenario. But again, it's a single target. So let's look at the one-shot damage numbers. One-shot damage numbers, she's actually not too bad. Again, due to the synergies of what she has, having the Beloved One trait, having the ability to tap into man attribute if you're using Koyan Sky around her, that's going to allow for a lot more damage scalability. And that is where you're going to be using Brynn the majority of the time, is when you know there is a Brynhilder's Beloved unit and you can get away with it. It's a very wide niche and it works very, very solidly for her. Definitely have the capability of doubling that up. You get really, really solid damage output there. And Kidu's another interesting one. He was somebody that, in my opinion, was probably never intended to be able to 3-turn, and yet the devs made that possible. So it has been a very interesting one to view. And Enkidu's numbers are absolutely kind of bonkers, but usually only when you consider threat against humanity nowadays, which is a very rare niche and not one that comes up too often. So just looking at his normal numbers and man attribute numbers, unfortunately, Enkidu in a 3-turn environment is just going to fall behind most of the other competitors here. But in terms of one-shot damage, Enkidu's numbers are not bad, especially if you do have threat against humanity at play. So in that regard, yes, I do believe Enkidu still holds out quite strongly. There's also somebody like Shisho. She is single-target quick in terms of her damage performance, and 3-turning with her is not pretty, as you're going to have to use a K-scope, double Summer Scotty, and basically an Oberon there in order to make something like this happen. But you guys can see damage numbers are what they are. They're not exactly going to be the best, but if you do have her power mods in play, they are 100% modifiers, so definitely helps out quite a bit in a 3-turn environment. But for one-shot damage numbers, Shisho still holding strong, doing very, very solid numbers there, especially if even one power mod is in play. You're looking at 941k, so still kind of a little bit of a damage queen there in that regard. And then last but not least, it felt necessary to kind of show off Draco in comparison, as a lot of people wonder about the beasts and how they kind of perform in comparison. Just keep in mind the beasts have different modifiers, so it's not necessarily going to be the 2x modifier that you're used to in a lot of scenarios. You are going to have a little bit of difference in terms of the performance of someone like Draco. Now, with this, again, we are going to be able to use a Black Grail in terms of a 3-turn. So the numbers are pretty darn solid. We also had the power mods at play for her, and quite a bit of scalability when it comes to obviously additional MP levels, but those power mods actually being there, as well as the super effective servant niche that she has. Looking at Draco's proper 1-turn damage, though, is actually where she would fall off ever so slightly, but still, she can still hold her own against a lot of these Lancers in that regard. So it is what it is, but I would tell you guys, yes, Liz does actually hang with some of the other competition out there. I think Liz is actually, ironically enough, better in a 3-turn environment than most of her competition, whereas she's very, like, middle of the road in terms of one-shot damage. But having that, insane amount of charge baked into her kit, having good survivability, all of that definitely helps things out. She's also a dragon killer. So at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, is this somebody that you really want? Is this somebody that you think would fit out really well for you? I do think she'll be a very adaptable unit and usable in multiple different scenarios. In that regard, I think she's good. I think she's, even for a Buster unit, somebody that you can use maybe down the stretch in terms of a challenge fight, and she would still bear out as having a good performance. So let me know what you guys think about 5-star Liz Lancer, and whether or not you already rolled for her or will be rolling for her when she comes to an A. Also, again, which Ascension is best? Thank you guys for watching and supporting the channel all these years. I appreciate it. I will see you guys for the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Later. Okay. Ivy, thank you for the 10 months. Appreciate it. How's it going? Chat, can we get some love for Ivy? Hope you're having a great stream. I am. Bye, YouTube. Yes. I'd say First Ascension looks best in my opinion. I actually like them all. I think the Second Ascension's the weird one, but I do kind of see what they're going for with it, because like there is a little bit of a space vibe with this. But I don't know. I still really like the Third Ascension. But I 100% am not going to blame anybody if they just go like, oh, first is best. Tom Lancer dead and buried Sag. I could have compared Tom Lancer. Chat would not have liked me. Why the green? Why the green? You don't like it? Oh, is Aurelia not spinning? Sorry, chat. That's probably on me. I probably need to reboot the bot, the chat bot. Yeah, the final Ascension art for Liz is really, really nice. Again, a lot of people have pointed out that there's just a ton of extra features in there, including, and this kind of pissed some people off, there is Liz Japan right there. So she made it into the artwork, but is technically not in the game yet. Honestly, I actually love Eliza's face there. She's just super cute. The cameo is proof I exist, yes. A lot of buffs in the single target Lancer department are needed now. Feels like we got power creep with new Liz. I think in a weird way you have a lot of units that are strong in the single target Lancer category, but some of them are strong in different ways. You can make an argument that that means that like they're doing a good job and that it's properly balanced. But I feel like a lot of the ways that units are strong are very like they're super niche and they're clunky and they're not great. So if you told me like, hey, we're gonna have like a rebalancing and that we're gonna like buff a bunch of the units and fix a bunch of their issues, I would be okay with that. I wouldn't hate it. They went fully contrary wheel. Are you literally are you just talking about the third ascension? You're just talking about the green right here. Yeah, I mean I don't hate it. I do think they wanted something for contrast that wasn't just more pink. Also because that might look a little bit too similar to Bryn with the shape of that spear. But yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like blue would have been a better thing there. You got aerial drive vibe. I mean, in terms of like Mecha Musume, yes, but actual aesthetic, no. It feels like every Ellie story they do, they manage to improve the story that Liz is part of. I mean, that's just a sign of a good story, right? Luck proceeded to get double new Liz first multi, so therefore makes her my favorite Liz. Hey, nice. We get Liz Japan as another 5-star. That would actually be kind of wild. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you got 2 Liz's in one event, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't complain, but I think you would start to see people complaining. I think you'd see people like actually mauling that that was a thing. Spear looks better in the Bonsi, I think. I don't think I've seen the Bonsi. Let me take a look at it. Yeah, interesting enough, a planet P. Oh god. I was gonna say what this reminds me of is it reminds me of Longinus from Final Fantasy XIV. So Longinus is where is it? Oh, come on. Give me a good picture. Yeah, there we go. Longinus is the Dragoon like relic weapon for the base game. And it is just one of the most badass looking spears in the entire game. I obviously I haven't played 14 in a while, but I'd be willing to bet that this is still like probably the best looking spear. Just it has been a timeless one in terms of its looks because it has the like the helix that moves around it in a similar way to like how this has the central helix going around. I used Longinus Zeta as my glam for so damn long. Yep. If any of you have played a Dragoon in 14, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's already pretty wild that we're getting 2 Liz's in the same event when you include the 4-star adventure. Oh, that's true. I already forgot about the welfare in that regard. We can't even talk about the welfare because there's still like not anything actually known about her. I literally like before stream I messaged Avalon to be like, hey, we never got anything more on that, right? So it's like there's and I'm double checking right now. There's still like nothing in the data mines for it. So we know that she'll be available with the epilogue, but that's it. We don't know anything beyond that. Running inside out, find nothing but faith and nothing. Caster Liz buff is so mid. Yeah, so you guys want to talk about the buffs? Let's talk. I guess I'll put the black camera background back on in case OKS wants to turn this into a segment as well. We could use the YouTube content, so OKS maybe do that. Oh shit. Okay. It's not the way I want to do this. Oh, it's still gonna do it anyways, isn't it? Yeah, it takes me right to the strengthening. Sorry, I didn't do it in a good order there anyways. Is it this one, chat? No. This one. Okay, hold on. This is the one I gotta think about. NP is the upgrade on this one? Is it? I was gonna say, I thought the Happy Halloween thing was already a thing, so. Yeah, strengthen 3. All right, hold on, because I still gotta go back and read this because I don't remember what Halloween does. So basically, it puts the Happy Halloween buff stacks on them, which then means if you NP a second time, assuming you're facing, like, say, 3 enemies at 60% charge. It's like you're gonna put the stack on, then you're gonna trigger this skill. Then that's gonna get you 20% based off the number of enemies. Like I said, they've made Casterliz so convoluted, and it's so weird what they've done with her in that regard. But it is not a bad buff per se. I just, am I missing something, chatters? Like, what is the point of the Halloween battlefield? I don't think there is any point. Not yet. It's just a new field type. I'm so sad that they didn't get rid of this demerit. Just use it first, but it's still a pain. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about each of them. Okay, so we actually got, with the new Halloween event, 3 new buffs to the existing Elizabeth copies that existed in the game. So obviously there's a ton of Liz welfares, and 2 of them got upgrades, as well as the original OG gotcha unit, Eliza here. So Liz definitely in a lot of her forms has been a little bit lackluster over the years. It has been a point that I have tried to make for a long time that the Liz's definitely needed upgrades. And to be fair to the devs, over the years they actually have given the Liz's several upgrades. My problem with them has been that several of those upgrades have been kind of bad. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about each one. I'm going to kind of evaluate whether or not I think it was a good buff for that particular Liz. So starting off here with the OG, the original, her buff is a buff to her 3rd skill. It was basically her battle continuation. Now this was just a plain Jane gut skill. There was nothing too much to write home about it. And what they actually did with this skill is they left the guts intact as it is. They also added a 30% charge skill to it. This is definitely not a bad thing. It's very welcome on Liz Lancer that has never had charge, and charge is just kind of one of the things that she actually needed to just be more competitive. Her not having it, even amongst 4 stars, where charge is still pretty relevant and needed and something that a lot of them have, her not having it just kind of always hamstrung her. So I do think this was a really, really good insight for them. They also just kind of looked at her damage output and said, you know what, it's not good. And they were right. It was not very good. So they increased her Buster performance for 3 turns. The sneaky thing about this skill is, while also providing that 30% steroid, is that they reduced the cooldown down to 6 turns at maximum rank, which gives you a reason to lore this skill, and does mean that now she can 3-turn loop with a double Koyanskaya and Oberon setup. And it also means that she can double up this skill with the additional steroid. So this just made Liz Lancer a heck of a lot more viable, a heck of a lot stronger. They get an A+ for this buff. This is exactly what Liz Lancer needed to just make her kind of brought into the modern era of FGO and actually viable. Because let's be honest, prior to this point, the main reason a lot of people were going to use Liz Lancer was the fact that she had sadistic charisma to double up on the charisma stacks for females, and the fact that she had a defense down for all enemies. That's what a lot of people used her for. She was just sort of a person to take out a wave that buffed other people in the party. Now she's actually a legitimate unit in her own right that can sit here and make her work in multiple scenarios. That's why I said, again, A+ for this buff on OG Liz. Now we get to the original welfare added to the game, which is Liz Caster from the original Halloween event. Now, technically, again, you could say that Saber Lily is technically an older welfare. She was given out at the game's release, but Liz was the first actual welfare that came through an event in the game. Now, in that regard, Liz is historically not good. She is one of the game's worst welfares, and that's sad because I actually feel like she's a pretty fun unit, but the devs just really kind of left her out to dry. So, interestingly enough, over time, they have given her buffs. They've basically given her charge, so that made her a lot more viable. Unfortunately, they put it on a 7-turn cooldown, so you needed something like the 2nd append and the 5th append to make this more doable. But with her being a welfare, you should at least have access to the coins. That's not that crazy. And they also buffed her first skill to give her the Happy Halloween gimmick, which was an interesting idea, but frankly clunky and bad. So I don't really think this was too viable in the way that they wanted it to work. And I think the devs kind of realized that, but this also may have been one of those scenarios where they already knew they were going to do an additional buff to Liz Caster. So what they actually ended up buffing was her Noble Phantasm. And guess what? That is what she needed. Liz Caster just needed more damage output. That was obviously her main issue. So to me, some of the buffs prior to this point have been extremely lackluster. This is similar to the first buff that we talked about, actually hitting where it needs to hit. Her original NP just ignored defense buffs and inflicted curse to the enemies while dealing damage. It was nothing too much to write home about, just simple, but the damage output on it was fairly low, even for a unit that you were guaranteed 5 copies of. Now they come back in and they give her a standard NP interlude, so you just get a bump up in damage from that. And they also basically increase the effects of the NP. So now you guys can see it will inflict Happy Halloween debuff for 3 turns to enemies that it hits. Now, obviously, if you're just using her to wave clear, this is not a big deal. But if you're going up against enemies that may be a little bit more robust, or maybe they have break bars or something like that, this is going to inflict the Happy Halloween debuff to them for 3 turns. And it's an AoE NP, so it's going to be all enemies. And the reason that that's important is because with the first skill, if you cash it in, it will charge the NP gauge by 20% based off the number of enemies that have the Happy Halloween status. So this is a really, really nice thing for her in that regard, as this will change how much charge she can get. It's not just going to make her just a 30% charger anymore, and that can definitely free her up quite a bit. I do have to admit, this is still a very clunky buff, so they're not going to get an A+ for this one, because devs, what were you doing with the Happy Halloween buff? This is just absolutely convoluted and something that you could have made a lot more streamlined, easier to understand for people, and just, again, more accessible, especially for a welfare. But regardless, she also gets a 500% chance to grant herself the Halloween Battlefield buff for 3 turns. This is new. Halloween Battlefield has not been a thing prior to this, so this is a new battlefield type, and this does make things interesting. I'm going to say this flat out. For those of you guys that are maybe skeptical that this is the last Halloween ever, then this would be the worst buff imaginable if we're not going to ever get another Halloween event. I don't think that's the case. I think this is actually signaling that there will be many other Halloweens to come, and that this is their way of saying, yeah, we're going to give her a effect to trigger this battlefield, but let's see kind of where it's going to evolve from here. Right now, this has no effect, but obviously at some point in the future, it will. Now, her overcharge is still the infliction of curse, but it's also going to increase the party's critical damage for 3 turns by 20%. This is a little bit ham-fisted. Obviously, she is a buster unit, which buster compositions do have a tendency to have stars. She also does have stars per turn in her kit, but this is still a little bit weird, and most of the time, your caster's not going to be the one out there soaking a lot of the stars, so I don't really know what they're trying to do with this, other than, again, at least it is party-wide instead of just Liz herself. So, to me, I'd give them like a B on this buff. It is in the right direction. They knew they needed to tweak her NP damage, and they absolutely did that. So at least they get that part right, but some of the other stuff here, just a little bit odd. Then we get to the Mecha Ellies, and this actually applies to both versions of them. So if you're wondering why I'm not showing the normal, like, more chrome metallic one, trust me, she's also affected by this buff. But basically, they came in and they actually buffed her 3rd skill. Now, with Mecha Ellie's been somebody that has received buffs before, and she's actually somebody that for a long time has actually been pretty solid, just in part due to the fact that she is a welfare, and she is single target, and she is alter ego. This does make her sort of the new player's friend when it comes to killing foreigners in the game, because while you don't encounter foreigners very early in the game, unless you do something like Epic of Remnant, you're still going to need some way of dealing with them, as they are going to end up being a little bit of a block, especially when it comes to LB7. So having a welfare single target alter ego has always been a good thing for the game, and at least the Mecha Ellies were, as I mentioned before, pretty serviceable. They hit fairly hard. The biggest issue was they didn't have a whole lot of charge. Their card performance wasn't exactly stellar for anything other than damage. But still, as we get to this buff, we now see what are they trying to target with this. So if you look at the original form of the buff, which is Final Ellie Chan, this one had the 500% chance to remove defensive buffs. increase own and P damage by up to 60% for 1 turn, and increase critical damage for 1 turn by also up to 60%. And they looked at this and they said, this is a little bit too restrictive. They basically just came in and increased it for a whopping 3 turns on both of those effects, which is actually kind of wild because the cooldown of the skill at max rank is 5 turns, which means you can get back to the skill really, really fast. So the fact that it has 3 turn duration means Ellie has a ton of uptime on this effect now. They also allowed her to have a self debuff on attack buff for 3 turns so that she basically will inflict burn damage whenever she attacks now. And that is definitely a nice thing for her to have. This also does give you some synergistic synergy with anybody that scales off of burn damage, or any craft essence that also could give her a power mod for anybody that's being burned. So definitely a nice upgrade here in terms of firepower. The only thing I maybe wish that they had changed that they didn't is the chance to remove her own defensive buffs. This does just mean you have to press the skill before you press other skills in her kit, and it does suck in that regard. I wish they had gotten rid of this, honestly. But hey, at least they gave us a 3-turn duration on one of the game's already stronger steroids. So in that regard, not a bad one. But interestingly enough, she still doesn't have an NP interlude, so we'll have to see if at some point they actually do give her that. But again, I actually think this is a pretty solid one for Mecha Ellie as well. So I'm going to give them probably somewhere in the realm of like a B+ for this. Not quite everything that I'd want, and I'm not going to say it makes her like more applicable, but it does, at least when it comes to usability, increase that, make her easier for everybody to use, but especially new players. So in that regard, I do think this is a nice buff. I think this is pretty darn solid. So honestly, the devs get a pretty good score from me in this round of buffs. I think they did a fantastic job. The only real issue there was, again, Caster Ellie, and I'm just not really sure what the devs want you to do with Caster Ellie at this point. We'll see. Maybe they have grander plans in the end. But yes, I actually do think this was a fairly solid set. And it definitely helps the Ellies out and brings them a little bit into a better state for them and modernizes them, so to speak, with regards to the way the rest of the roster is functioning. So let me know what you guys think about these buffs and which one of these you think is the best one. I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Later. Yeah. Also makes her old buff stronger by proxy. Are you referring to the caster one? Easy? It's fairly easy. I like FGO for me is a very like known game in that regard, so it's not hard for me to talk about. Did Brave Liz get anything? No. A little bit. We all know what they need to do with Brave Liz, and I don't think they want to do it because I think their vision for the unit is where the difference is. Yeah, no, I completely agree, Drask. I think like that the Ellie Lancer buff is just exactly what she needed. She's needed it for years. I don't know why it took them so long to do it. Especially when you have units like Lulter running around just like actually melting people as a 4-star. It really makes you just wonder what the devs actually are thinking about. And I don't think they're actually thinking very hard on some of this. I think they don't have the time, they don't have the ability, and so they just don't deal with some of it. Can we watch the vid for the JP event? What do you mean? Talking about the commercial? Wouldn't surprise if the Halloween Battlefield benefits the new welfare Liz once we get her. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. Yeah, we can watch it. If it'll load. Okay, hold on. I don't need to get I don't why is it like giving me a pop-up of somebody else's thumbnail there? Just weird. I do think the animation there is super solid. Yeah, you guys want to watch Rain Lo-Fi? OG Liz makes her old defense down and sadistic charisma better because of the fact that she now actually hits hard enough to take a wave while having a really good generic female support. Yeah, I mean, again, if you look at this skill's on a 5-turn cooldown. This skill's on a 5-turn cooldown. Like, this is just an absolute force magnifier for her. That's what the reason that I think a lot of people go like, oh, we don't want everyone with charge. And I'm like, yeah, but it's an arms race at this point. And if you don't have it, you're just left behind. You're just bad. And that's not a good thing. Like, and I say bad, you're not actually bad. It's not like you're unusable or anything. But like, the issue at play here, chat, is in giving her this 30% charge, she now gains access to double coin Skya comps. Gaining access to double coin Skya comps lets her double this up. So she didn't have this before at all, which means this one change gave her 60% extra steroid that she didn't have. But wait. Technically, we can argue that now this is also going to be double uppable and that this can be triggered on turns 2 and 3. This means that this improves wave 2 and wave 3 damage instead of like just wave 3. This is also good. I'm not going to include it in the calculations though, because it's something that she already had. And frankly, a lot of the times you would just sit there and do it. So the intangible effect here is that this improves a wave that it could be problematic, but you wouldn't normally use it on. That's a nice thing. That's an expansion of capability. And if we look at sadistic charisma, this was already something you were just going to put on. It's a 40% modifier. Guess what? On a 5-turn cooldown, we double this up on turn 2. So this means that she gets 40% extra steroid right here as well because of that third skill buff. So the net effect, besides just being able to 3-turn, is that she gains 100% modifiers. That's why something as dinky as 30% charge, when you didn't have it, matters. And we saw a very similar effect if you go all the way back to like Mao Nobu, when they made Mao Nobu's charge different. And all of a sudden, it was like the doors blew off and that unit became way better, right? Like it's a very similar effect where sometimes gaining access to the better composition completely 180s the servant. So yes, absolutely. Oh, hold on, chat. My headset's dying. If they made the OG Liz buff targetable, then it probably would have been an S plus buff. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the devs are stupid, right? They know, but they're not gonna do something that crazy. Well, I say that. They have before, but unlikely. I think most of the time the devs know not to do stuff like that because it's just gonna break things for everybody else. Like, if you look at some of the strongest buffs that we've had in the game, usually they're to units that were pretty far behind. So, like, in this case, this was a very strong buff. Liz was pretty damn far behind. So it's nice that she gets it. I think this is the type of buff that you hope, like, your favorite unit that the devs haven't been paying attention to gets. Like, I'll give you guys an example. Any Kyo fans out there? Like, this is the type of buff that you would hope, like, a Kyo would get. Where it's like, oh, man, the devs just ignore the character for way too long. Same reason why they removed Helena from the tutorial role. Yeah. Brave Liz is on 5-star Liz's final ascension. That's enough. Maybe. Chad, do you think we get a summer Liz next summer? Chat, have I predicted a summer Liz before? I'm one of the only people that's been saying that. I've been saying that for a while. So, do I think that would happen next summer? Yeah. I thought it would happen this past summer. I warned chat it was gonna happen eventually. And people were like, no, not Ellie, no. And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna happen. No. It is what it is. This was like Altera, buff every possible way, then give up, have charge, and she blows the doors off. Yeah. And that's the problem that you run into when you try not to give the thing, like... Here's my honest belief from years of talking about units in this game, years of analyzing them, years of advising people on them, and years of predicting with them. Okay? You're getting big brain CAD right here. Here is the way that they handle units. Okay? In FGO, they have a servant, a unit, if you will. That unit has a kit. Okay? They want that unit and their kit to have an identity. Therefore, whenever they buff a unit, they try to buff the unit respective of that kit. They try to keep in mind what that identity is and preserve it. The issue is when the identity begins to go against the meta. So this is where units will fall really far behind. Not just like, oh man, I'm 10% damage behind. No, like this is where it's like, the meta has shifted. You are no longer nearly as like usable. You're still usable to the same capacities you were, but this is an expansion of usability is functionally what a meta is. So that's where you have that sort of stuff as an issue. I do believe the devs have a little bit of a plan for each unit, but I think sometimes the plans go awry. I think sometimes they realize that their plan was not a good idea after all, and they change it. I also think that they only have so much time to devote to buffing units, and I think they like just from looking over the past couple of years here and how many upgrades they've done, that there's only so many they can do per year, and they're trying their best to kind of keep the roster up to date, but that they naturally are failing because the roster grows ever bigger and they are not able to scale the amount of buffs they're doing to the scaling of said roster. So I think with that in mind, chat, if you were to look, who do you think the most buffed group of units is in the entire game? If you guys were to tell me, who do you think the most buffed group is? Class or character? Neither. Rarity. Do you think they buff a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, a 4-star, or a 5-star the most? Why do you guys think they buff the 5 stars the most? It is definitely a money issue. It doesn't mean that they are not going to buff the low stars. They of course are. But they'd also have to be actual idiots to not buff the 5 stars, right? Like, oh, I know, let's buff all of our 3 stars instead. Like, no, obviously it's not going to make them money, right? Like, they have a vested interest in keeping the 5 stars more viable because the 5 stars are who people roll for and make them the most money. So obviously they're going to try to keep that on track. So if you want to look at the most buffed rarity in the entire game, it's definitely 5 stars. That being said, it's also kind of obvious because you also have kind of the most 5 stars in the game. So it's the biggest rarity, it's the most money generating rarity, and it is definitely a thing that they know. I don't think the FGO devs always consider money whenever they do things, and that's why you see them buffing low star units and welfares and stuff. But I also think that's where the devs don't necessarily have a vested interest in doing it, so they don't do it as often. This is why if you look at somebody like the Lizzes, it took them so long to actually get around to giving them some of the buffs that they needed. There's also the evolution of what the meta is in the game and what, you know, kind of passes the smell test and what they need to do to a unit to get them online and viable. If we look at Lartoria's upgrade, for instance, Lartoria's upgrade, her most recent one, got her very close. It got her competitive with Mel. Mel was still beating her. What actually pushed her beyond Mel finally was the buff to Waver. And so now all of a sudden you have a unit that's stronger than Mel. That's rare. We had not had that happen yet. But the idea behind that is that they kind of calculated, I assume, behind the scenes, what they needed to do to bring Lartoria in and make her competitive once again. Because frankly speaking, while she was not a bad unit, she had definitely been lagging behind in the damage department. So as damage and power creep goes up over the course of the game, you end up realizing that you have to buff people more and more and more. And we can see that if we look at the Lartoria buff and how much actual firepower they had to give her. Same thing if you look at Liz here. They didn't just give Liz a 30% steroid. That's what it looks like on paper, but we just explained that in giving her this buff, it allowed her to enter into the Koyanskaya setup, which allowed her to double up other things, which basically turned her into a 100% steroid increase, which is really, really strong. And that is why they did that. They knew they needed to get Liz to be more viable against even just her 4-star competition. So, like I said, I think they have a plan, but I think the plan evolves and changes over time. What that plan is probably varies from unit to unit. They probably have an idea of, again, the identity and what they want to preserve and keep for the unit. But they also know that they need to keep the unit competitive. Why does the unit need to be competitive? Because if the unit is not competitive, why do you want the unit? Obviously, there's things like character preference that go into it, but we've seen this time and time again, where even if a character is somebody that is like relatively attractive, or at least beloved, there's still people that'll just go, I'm not going to roll on this if the unit is quote unquote bad. And, you know, I'm somebody that I usually don't use the term bad a lot in this game. I think a lot of units are still viable as long as you know how to use them. But there's definitely a school of thought within the community that it's like, if you're not first, you're last. If you're not actually like top dog or the most capable, then you are not worth using. And I think the devs at least would probably acknowledge that that sentiment exists and that they need to somewhat address it. And I've had people before that have said like, oh, why do you need to balance and, you know, buff and do all these things in a non-competitive environment? And to a degree, I understand where that's coming from. There's nothing wrong with that mentality per se, but the reason that the devs do have to do it is because they are in the business of making money. And if they don't do those things, they will start making less and less money. That is quite easy to prove as well as we look at some other gacha games that don't do buffs and how power creep starts scaling really far out of control and how people just don't roll for the older units even when they do get another banner. Why? Because they're so far behind the units that actually are currently in the meta that it becomes a little bit of a problem. Same thing happens a little bit with FGO, where, you know, some of these units have been out for years and have not gotten buffs. The only difference I can say is, at least with FGO, you always have the hope that your unit does get a buff at some point down the line. And so that will still give a little bit of optimism and desire to roll for units, even if they're maybe not in the best state, because the idea might be, well, maybe one day they actually are, and I'm going to be really happy when that day rolls around and I already have that unit online. But there's definitely also the reverse school of thought on that, which is going to be that, why would I bother to roll until the unit is good? And obviously, if the unit gets a buff, they're probably also going to get a banner, so therefore I can just wait. So it really just depends, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's a good thing that FGO does buff, and their biggest issue is the fact that they haven't been able to buff more, and that is probably primarily caused by just a lack of actual staff and manpower and the capability and time to do so. Also because it's probably not a super big priority, as their priority would probably be getting new story out, getting new events out, and again, selling whatever the new gacha unit is. So in that regard, it's easy to see why it's not as big of a priority, but why it is something that they've continued over the years, and why sometimes we scratch our heads with what they do with it, because to some degree it's like, oh, maybe they had this plan for the unit, but now they realize that's not good enough, and they changed the plan partway through, and so the unit just looks like they've been veered off to the left and then veered back off to the right, and you're like, huh? Why is that a thing? And that's why their plan changed. Three star, maybe. I remember that slew of skill 3 stars. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you wanted to go all the way back and say, hey, we had to add a third skill to a bunch of the 3 and 4 stars in the game, you would not be inherently wrong. But I don't really consider those to be buffs. I consider those at least to be the realm of like, hey, we had to do this because it was stupid that we didn't do it in the first place. Oberon buff coming soon. I don't think you'll ever see an Oberon buff. I think the devs probably... I think the devs, the balance staff, the people in charge of handling the relative state of things probably regret Oberon. I don't think as a character they regret him. I don't think as a unit overall that they have major issues with him. I think they regret his impact that he's had. Because it's definitely caused them to have to create a like new tier of content that is much more difficult. And unfortunately, for better or worse, and this may be by design, to be fair, the devs may have purposely done Oberon to that degree simply because they needed content to be pushed harder so that they could justify you rolling for more copies. Because we were getting to a point in the game where, like, even with 90 plus content, it was relatively solved, and you could do a lot of it with just an NP1. So I think that's where like 90 plus plus and plus 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 and star and all that stuff is starting to come in. Is like the devs have realized they need more of an upper limit to the game because Oberon blew the doors off of that. But that may have been by design in order to allow us to have to roll more copies of our given units. All right, chat. Dog hair. There, God. No, still. I think I got it. Yeah, we have 100 triple star at this point, so not that insane. My thinking is like, can you 3-turn roll? Well, like, that's one of the reasons why I talk about it, because I see every single time that I start talking about 3-turning with a single target unit, I get a lot of people that are like, no. Like, why would I need to 3-turn with a single target unit? And it's like, there's a reason you would. It's almost like we have boss fights with break bars. It's almost like I do this all the time on my own. So I see a lot of people that like say that. I legitimately wonder if those people play the same game. But I will admit, it's like, yeah, obviously, if a single target can't 3-turn, it's not the end of the world. It's not like that is the end all be all for single targets. Ironically enough, the single target Lancers are in a good enough spot that 3-star Liz doesn't, or 5-star Liz doesn't really threaten them a lot. I think the biggest issue with there is that she's actually the best 3-turner of the single targets. And the only issue is that, like, her one-shot damage is not better. If her one-shot damage was actually stronger, she would be a major threat. But major threat and gotta roll are a different story. Because I do think we're at a scalability problem in the game. Where, and I know it sounds like I beat the dead horse when I say this, because it's like, oh, Melison's my favorite unit to kind of like do these comparisons on. One, because I'm very intimately familiar with her, but two, it's also something where like we can talk about it actively, right? So it's like, let's say you had Mel's damage up here, and then you had like Erish, and you had like Lartoria. I mean, technically there's like Roma and other people out there, but like these are a good 3 to compare because they've also gotten buffs. So, Erish very quickly got an upgrade that put Erish, like, right here. And then, technically, Erish is here if you have her super effective niche. Okay? Lartoria got multiple upgrades. The first one, like, took her to here, which was a really weird upgrade. That's her buff to her first skill. And then she gets the buff to the charisma. And then Waver gets a buff. And now you're like, oh, wow, Lartoria base value is just the strongest. Technically, she can go even higher with this upgrade because it's conditional. But, like, that's how that one played out. This is actually a relatively good state of balance, okay? But you look at that and you're like, they released this unit like this. Therein lies the problem. You look at, like, all the upgrading they needed to do in order to get these units online and viable, and you start going, like, why, right? So there's definitely a level of like, hey, they maybe have gone a little bit too hard at points. And there's definitely a point where you can say like, okay, well then when is it Mel's turn? When does Mel get an upgrade? Well, the problem is if you give Mel an upgrade, now you have to upgrade the other 2 again. And it obviously it's more than just 2, right? Like there's way more other AoE Lancers that are impacted by this. So you end up at a really, really weird point with this sort of thing. But I think we're also at the point now where if we start considering this, like, because they've had to do this, because they've realized, like, hey, no one's going to roll for these other units if we don't make them viable or at least somewhat competitive with the, like, top dog unit that we made super strong. Now, because you're doing that, everybody's at that capability level, and we're reaching another, like, point of parity where we start going, like, okay, but why do I need a new unit? And therein comes the issue of like, so if you don't roll on Liz, now they're incentivized to power creep again. Why? Because you didn't roll. So in order to get you to roll, they have to start making the unit better again. So it is an ever like evolving and revolving type of deal, but it's one of the reasons why you'll see it. Like, they have to pick up the back end and keep them competitive, but it's a balancing act. And the more they do it, the more they reach that parity, the more they need to make somebody stand out in order to make money. So that's why we will never reach a point of true balance in the game, because true balance is bad for them. But I do believe that where they were at their best was where you had, like, let's say you have 3 units. You have Unit A, you have Unit B, and you have Unit C. Your best scenario is this. Unit A is this strong. Unit B is this strong. Unit C is this strong. And this is, I should make them seem closer than this. Unit B, however, has a conditional buff that makes it this strong. Unit C has a super effective niche that makes it this strong. That is balance. Because it means that there are scenarios where you would take A, there are scenarios where you would take B, and there are scenarios where you would take C. That makes them the most money. What doesn't make them the most money is when you have, like, Unit D, and this is Unit D. and Unit D is not conditional, and Unit D is just stronger. Because then nobody rolls A, nobody rolls B, and nobody rolls C. Because when the unit that doesn't have a conditional niche is just the strongest, and even beats people in their niche, why would you ever roll the other units? Unless it's just like, man, I really like that unit and its character over the base strong unit. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when when Summer Ibuki was coming to an A, and she was already months away still, and people were like, oh, just get Summer Ibuki. You don't need to roll anything else. Just get Summer Ibuki. Every other unit, garbage, get Summer Ibuki. And then what did they do? All of a sudden on JP, out-trotted a Musashi buff that made a bunch of the Summer Ibuki people complain. Why? Well, that mentality was what the problem was. If you're telling people don't roll, just roll this one unit, it doesn't help the devs. They're actually incentivized to break that. So it's really funny to see that sort of stuff as we go on, right? But I think you'll continue to see it. You'll continue to see devs break super, like I wanted to call it a super majority, but it's not really a super majority. It's like a super leader. You'll want to see devs break that, where they make other people stronger than them and bring about parity. But you'll also see the devs try to create power creep when they have too much parity. And that's how you create a revolving door of balance. Which is not good for us as the players, but it's great for the devs. It's just better off to roll who you want at that point. Yeah, and honestly, like I said, we're at a point where so many units are strong that it is kind of getting to that point again. And it's more going to be about, like, how hard do I really have to try? Which, I'll be honest, the only way the devs break that yet again is to make another difficulty level. And I don't see them doing that anytime soon. I think a little bit, I think the devs are already, like, terrified of the, like, story clear rate and getting people to actually do stuff in that regard. And JP's a lot better than NA, I suspect. So I think JP has a lot more people that are actually going about and doing this stuff and trying their hardest. But it is what it is. Bishtar's nowhere nowadays. Bishtar's still pretty darn competitive. If you actually look at the numbers, she's not, like, left behind at all. There's just... It's the same argument of, like, so when I drew that last line of arrows, it made things look really bad, but it's like the line of arrows is actually more or less something like this. I've just been kind of magnifying them that you guys can see how much of a difference, but it's like this looks way less statistically significant, right? That's usually what we're arguing. We're arguing in a difference of, like, oh, well, this unit does 27k. Well, that unit's trash, and the unit that does 28k is so much better. And it's like, the issue at play here is, like, we can claim the unit that does 28k is better, but if the unit that does 27k still clears the node, we don't care. It's like, when you're talking about minuscule differences in damage, and that's what I mean when I say competitive. Competitive is like being in the same ballpark where you both still clear the node. And it's like, the only difference is, yeah, but I clear it harder. That's not a big deal, right? Like, yes, is that unit objectively better? Correct. Does it matter? No. And then it really does become, like, which of the two units do you like more? So that is actually a relatively good state. But that's what I said. It's like they have to get more units actually competitive. If you have a unit that does 27k and a unit that does 28k, and then a unit that does 15k, I think we can make a good argument that the unit that does 15k is not competitive. That unit is left behind. That unit needs a bump up to get with this group. The way to buff Mel is a skill buff that works mainly towards the single target. They can't buff the NP. Yeah, I mean, I've seen people say it's like, oh, let's buff Mel, and I'm like, I really just don't feel like Mel actually needs a buff. But, you know, I'm never going to say, like, never on this stuff. It's just, yeah, I think they would be better off, like, in the case of, like, Mel, Kukulkan, Tiamat, like when you have, like, one of those big damage leaders, you're better off just not touching them. Unless they have an actual flaw in their kit. So it's like, oh, I still remember back when they buffed Made Alter, there were people complaining because people knew Made Alter actually was the top dog in single target rider damage for a long time. And people were like, why would they buff Made Alter? It's like, well, they buffed her middle skill, and that middle skill was garbage. So they just offset one of the demerits that it had. That was fine. It didn't impact her damage output. It just made her a little bit less clunky as a unit. And I think that's okay. So there are ways you can touch a unit without necessarily like breaking the unit. So save up enough course to have it to be guaranteed in P level 5? Objectively speaking, no. Like right now on NA, you can't even do that because there's only pity on the first copy on NA. That will change here though. I believe that, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's at year end, isn't it? Like with New Year's, I think we get the change. But eventually we do get to the point where there is pity on every copy, which is what JP has right now. And it's really, really, is it next, Danny? Okay. So it's still a little bit. But yeah, eventually we'll get it with every copy. Even then though, I would still say no, don't save up to the point where you can get like pity on every single copy, because I'll be honest with you, since that change came out on JP, I do not know a singular person that has gone to pity all 5 times on a unit. I'll be honest, I don't even know a person that's gone to pity more than twice on the same unit. I do know someone that's gone twice. I don't know anybody that's like, oh man, I hit pity 3 times on the same unit. Now, somebody in chat might chime up and say that's happened to them, but even that is obscenely rare. Also, actually, I believe I myself have gone twice on a unit. Of course, you know him, he's you. Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, I'm just sitting there thinking, I was like, wait. But yeah, it's like, I wouldn't expect that. So, to me, have enough to hit pity so that you can secure getting the unit. But from there, like, I don't think you need too much more. And that's usually just, it's not even something you necessarily have to do. It's just, that's a best practice thing. Where, like, if you don't have 900 quartz, you can't guarantee you're not going to get the unit. Or at least the equivalent of 900 quartz. Right, you can't guarantee you will get the unit. I said that wrong. Welcome back. Almost done with the main quest for Legends ZA. Yeah, I saw the news that it's like not selling well in the UK, and that's interesting because from everything I heard, it's like, oh, they had like record-breaking lines and stuff for ZA. So it does make me wonder if like the game maybe was a bit of a paper tiger and didn't sell as well, which wouldn't surprise me. I saw a lot of negative sentiment towards ZA as it was coming out, but I don't think it necessarily makes it a bad game. Go back into the game, so I didn't know how much I should have for summoning for a DPS. It's totally up to you. I mean, FGO's pretty good about not taking you to pity, but I can't guarantee it won't. Like that is the beauty of FGO, is you don't go to pity very often. The problem is you definitely can get taken to pity, so it just depends on luck of the draw. I don't get why quick single target Arturia faces still have some clunk to them. It's in the same way, you know how they've like done the pass here on the Ellies and stuff, and there's now like the ability to like make everybody an Elizabeth. I am so sad that they haven't done that with an Arturia. Like it feels like they keep doing this, and it's like out of all of them, having an Arturia that could give the like saber face trait to people would be fucking amazing. Like it feels like it actually fits that more than anything else, but. Or maybe not even that. It's like having an Arturia that could give the Knight of the Round trait to everybody would be really cool. That would actually like be more thematic and fit. But yeah, we'll see. I do hope that they go back and tweak some of them. That's gonna be MHX 100%. Yeah, but the problem is she'd be exploiting that. I prefer ZA over Arceus. The repetition in Arceus made me stop playing it halfway through. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm only speaking like third hand here on anything Pokemon related at the moment because I'm not a big enough Pokemon person that I picked up the new game because I'll be honest, the new game did not look like they put a whole lot into it to me. But I do know that they did like new mechanics for this one, so I've still heard people enjoying it. MHX is delusional, so she sees everyone as Arturia. I mean, that sounds more like Mordred, but no, MHX doesn't see everybody as Arturia. She just sees everybody as a Saber. Have Saber give a Knight of the Round trip. Yeah, I'm really surprised that they haven't done that. Because a little bit, and this is, I know everybody likes the Fairy Knights. It feels so bad for the OG Knights of the Round. It feels like they got their entire shtick just ripped off. And that, like, they have not gotten their time in the sun since Camelot. And Camelot was a relatively bad portrayal of them. I don't mean Arthurian Camelot. I mean, like, in-game FGO 6 Singularity. If ZA had the open world of Arceus, everyone would love it. I actually kind of agree. I think, like, and to be fair, if the rumors of the budget are actually true and the game only had like $10 million worth of budget, yeah, I mean, like, that makes sense why it didn't have more to it. They jam-pack the map with quests, and because the map isn't gigantic, it makes the city feel like there is so much to do. Yeah. I don't think that's bad. I think, like, when it comes down to games in general, like, one of the big problems with an open world game is that open world games can often feel hollow and empty. And I'll give you guys an example of this. Literally, Ghost of Yotai felt that way to me. One of the reasons I did not, like, I need to go back to it. I need to finish it. But I haven't really had the desire on top of me being busy. And instead I had, like, my coworker in my ear being like, dude, you should play Spider-Man. Spider-Man's so good. And I'm like, man, what's it like to play a good game? That's why I, like, started picking up Spider-Man and playing it. I kind of prefer open world with a smaller world because it feels like many of them are jam-packed, but rather the empty world. Yeah, I mean, people would say it's like, oh, it's really tough to do an open world right. I really don't think it is. I think you have numerous instances of good open world games that's what people expect because they were so successful. Everybody looks to them as the model, and they judge every new game by it when they move on. If you remember the window guy, I threw his early ZA review into CAD Reacts. Oh, God. Pokemon fans are Stockholm victims. I mean, Gurus was right the other day when he said it's like, it's not like I hate Pokemon fans, but I think the frustration is just annoying in the sense that you want games and developers that are not trying and are just milking people to fail. So it's like, I understand people love Pokemon, and I understand they want Pokemon to be good. But that's also why, like, a little bit they have to vote with their wallet, and they have to say, like, I'm not going to buy this as much as it sucks. And I think that's the issue. Is like, some people just love Pokemon so much that they're going to buy every single game. I'll be honest with you guys, same way with me with Star Wars. But there's also a point where it's like, even with like say Star Wars Outlaws, I had major issues with it, and that's why when I was looking at playing that game, I didn't pay full price. I didn't give in to like what Ubisoft wanted. I did their stupid $15 subscription. I literally signed up for it and immediately canceled it. So that way I would not be locked into it. And I just beat the game with the month that I had access to it. And sure enough, I was right to have my misgivings about the game. It's been really funny. Every game I've had like some trepidation as to like whether or not it's going to be good, I have had really good instincts for that. Where it's like, it's not like it's bad, but yes, if I had that feeling, there were actual issues with the game and I would not have wanted to pay full price for it. Kirby Air Riders is looking absolutely amazing, though. I never played the original like Kirby games in that regard, so I have no idea how like I should even perceive Kirby nowadays. To purchase the new Digimon game instead. I mean, I was telling, I think it was Mega that I was talking to earlier because she was like, "Oh, I'm just on my Pokemon kick," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, you should play the Digimon game when you're done." Like, I know, I think a little bit like Pokemon people get to the point where they're like, "Oh man, like I only want to play Pokemon," and I'm like, "Yeah, but if you do have other options and the options are good, right? Like, I understand it's like, oh, I don't want to play a bad Digimon game. Sure, I get that, right?" But it's like if you're really jonesing for that like itch to be scratched, it's like, yeah, I do believe there's other like things and hobbies you can get into that would help you with that and would give you something to do. You can? Yes. Which is my favorite, Liz? I'm gonna evaluate this with no respect to gameplay. So I do really like how cute Eliza is, but I think for me it's Cinderella. I think Cinderella's where like that just really fits and they got that whole motif right. And I feel like that was like a, like, just masterclass of character design. Not that I like, and again, I'm actually not factoring in the Carmillas here because while they are technically Elizabeths, I view them as a separate character. Um, but I think that's the one where I feel like, yeah, that was actually a genius combination. I feel like if you haven't played the game, there's only so much criticism you can give. That, and then it even lacks value. Yeah, I mean, most of the like stuff like about the new Pokemon game are like me experiencing it like second and third hand, right? Like it's either people I just don't know at all on the internet saying things and, you know, providing clips and stuff to back it up, or it is uh like literally like people in like Discord and stuff playing it around me. Very cool. Thanks, guys. No problem. Chat, any other questions? Pokemon is only getting down lately. But I attribute it mostly to Nintendo having no respect for their player base. I mean, I don't think like having a 2-digit budget in an era where most games have a 3-digit budget in terms of millions is a good thing. But I mean, if you're making a smaller offering, I guess that's fine. I think the issue at play though is that Pokemon fans expect, and to be fair, they should. They expect more. Czar, thank you for the sub. How's it going, bud? Thank you for the big 7-5. I was going to say, and I agree. I feel like there's a lot of agreement tonight on stream. I don't know. Maybe my takes are not crazy. Just finished eating. Ooh, what'd you have? The fangs look so cute. Fried chicken, nice. I had fried chicken for lunch today. Today was the first day in like a month that I ate like fast food because I was supposed to order a pub sub. And usually like the whole reason I'll order a pub sub is I want to like go to the grocery store and grab something at lunch, but I still want it to be fast to get home in time for the dogs. So I'll pre-order the sub so that's ready when I get there. So just grab that, grab whatever else I need from the grocery store, and I'm gone in like 5 minutes. As opposed to like me having to sit there, wait in line, wait for them to prepare the sandwich, and it's like, oh, 20 minutes later, half my lunch break is gone, and this is not going well. So I pan fried, it was yummy. Nice. I just finished a pizza. Chap put the itch in me. I need to like home make a pizza here soon. Sancocho turned out pretty good. Let me see. Served with a side of white rice. Okay, so I've seen this sort of stuff before. It's almost like a stew, right? Definitely looks good though. I would eat that. My homemade pizza is usually me buying all the separate ingredients and putting them together. Yeah, that's why I want to home make a pizza, because one of the things I really want to have on a pizza is red peppers. Not like spicy peppers, like the sweet bell peppers, right? But I want to have red peppers on a pizza, And I feel like you can never get that no matter what pizza joint I ever go to. At least not down here. So that's something where I'm like, I really want to try that. I feel like it'd be a really good combination. And I just never get it. Bag. It's usually green for the color contrast. Okay. I mean, I don't care about color contrast. Because, like, the problem that I have with green peppers is that they're usually more acidic. Papa John's has it, I think. There's a lot of places that'll have, like, spicy peppers. Not crushed red pepper flakes? No, not crushed red pepper flakes. I do like that, though, occasionally on pizza. But it does, red pepper flakes and pepperoni, both when they are heated up, they, like, give it a whole lot of, like, oil and, like, grease. And that definitely is not the best. I'm nervous to make homemade pizza because I think I'm gonna mess it up. But you can basically buy like pizza dough, not pizza dough, but like a pre-made pie, and then just like put the ingredients on it yourself if you had to. I think it's more from the fact they're trying a very different battle system. And there is some grind issues, but otherwise I think it's a really fun game. I don't think that's the case. Cause like, don't get me wrong, yeah, I know they're doing a different battle system, but I think like most of the complaints I've heard are that the game aesthetically looks kind of underwhelming. And that at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's like everything's stuck in the city, so it doesn't feel like it's very big or very open. So those like most of the complaints I hear are rather like budgetary related rather than like, oh, the actual gameplay is bad. Which is why I think you see so many people saying like, oh yeah, I don't know why people are complaining. This is a good game. Pre-made frozen pizza dough is the thing. Yeah, I figured. For a second there, I thought you said I had pizza sauce and ketchup, and I was about to scream. When people complain about the graphics, I'm never sure what aspect they're talking about. I think it's the parts where the game looks like it's a Nintendo 64 game. Like I will legitimately back them up on the graphic complaints. The game in that regard definitely looks like it is way older. And to a degree, if that was like the aesthetic they were going for with the whole game, I wouldn't complain. But it's not. Depends if you like that active battle system, because I like my turn-based combat. Yeah, and I do think that's a valid complaint. Like, it's like, that's just a taste issue, but like, it's the same thing with like Final Fantasy games where they're turn-based for a long time and then they started trying to make them action games. You can do that, but it's not the best. Like that's obviously going to make some people be like, hey, this game isn't for me anymore. In fact, the graphic has barely evolved in the last 15 years. I mean, like, the reason I would say the graphics are an issue, because I know, like, some people are going to say, like, oh, it doesn't, I don't mind. It's not a problem. That's fine. You're more than welcome to think that. I think the reason why I would say it actually is a problem is because the devs know that they don't have to do it and they can keep getting away with it despite this game making shit tons of money. So it's like, it's something they absolutely should be doing, but people are giving them a pass purely because it's Pokemon. I feel like, for instance, if this were Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines, people would not give them a pass. Which, to be fair, they're not. I mean, apparently that game has terrible reviews as well. I know the humans look pretty good model-wise in ZA. I think the humans are on, like, Wii level. I'm not going to say they look bad, but I think, like, detail-wise, they're on the level of, like, a Wii character. I've seen a lot of people simping for the female simply because she's, like, in skin-tight clothing. And I'm like, man, y'all are easy to please. I mean, it's like, I get it, right? Like, yeah, it looks nice, but also, like... It's the ass. Yeah, it's just ass. That's all it is. I thought the gameplay in Masquerade 2 looked interesting so far. Apparently, it's just terribly optimized. Like, I heard, like, when you go up to somebody and you try to bite their neck to suck the blood out as a vampire, apparently the characters actually, like, moan when you do it. And if that wasn't weird enough, because it's like, Chad, it's like full-blown, like, sexual moaning, okay? If that wasn't weird enough, apparently sometimes it mixes up and isn't sure whether or not to use the male or the female, like, VA sound for that. So, like, there'll be times, I've literally seen a clip of, like, a vampire biting an old wrinkly dude and he's moaning like some college girl. So it is what it is. Like, to a degree, it's like, that doesn't make the game unplayable, but it's definitely off-putting. I would say it is funny in that regard. Like, it's like the equivalent of, like, if you encountered T-posing in a Bethesda game, right? It's like, oh, ha, 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 a glitch. But then at the same time, you're also like, this is kind of weird. He's just really into it, I guess. The game runs butter smooth since I started and hadn't any frame drops or issues. Yeah, and I mean, part of that may just be the Switch 2. Like, I will at least give them that, but I think that's also a legitimate criticism of it because, I mean, even with that stuff, I think, like, there are other games where people are like, you know, why doesn't this look like Breath of the Wild? Why doesn't this look like, was it Xenogears? Xenogears? Xeno something? Xenosaga? Xeno Frontier? Xenoblade, thank you. I don't know why my brain was blanking out on that. Forgive me, chat. I have not played the Xenoblade or Xenogears franchise either. Xenoblade, Xenogears was the proto of that, yeah. It runs well on the Switch 1, significantly better than Scarlet and Violet. Yeah, which is interesting. Like, it just makes you wonder, like, what the heck is going on behind the scenes there? I can still get high. I can play the guitar like a motherfucking ride. Have you played God Eater? No, I've never played God Eater, but I've seen it get played. I've seen Xenogears get played. I don't know that I've seen any Xenoblade get played other than the most recent one, which was Xenoblade 3, right? highly recommend the Xenoblade games. Oh yeah, I know several people that insist that they're great. I think my issue with like any Nintendo game right now is if it's not something that I'm immediately like, ooh yeah, I want that. I don't really want to pay full price for it. And Nintendo only ever rarely does sales, so I'm just like, in that regard, chat, don't we have Metroid coming out? We have Prime 4. December 4, yeah. That's probably the next Nintendo game I will get. I don't think you'd like the gameplay, but they're a great game. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of like games that I can get around. Usually where gameplay will maul me is if I feel like it's needlessly like unintuitive. Like where it's like they've actually made the gameplay to be as difficult as possible. Not the challenge that you're facing, but like the interface. And I think part of that aggravation comes from playing games like Dark Souls, where the game is jank and clunky at times, but in reality, you have perfect control over your character. So it's made me a stickler for, I don't care how jank your game is, but I better have good control over the character. I once heard people laud Blizzard for that as well, and that also would explain a lot about my mentality on that. I've definitely played a lot of Blizzard games over the years. So basically that like Blizzard always gets two things right. One is the like UI, and the other is like the actual precision control of your character. Everything else Blizzard seems to be getting wrong nowadays, but somehow they still get those things right. And those things do matter. You gonna play it on stream, Cad? What, Metroid? Yeah, probably. What if the game's point is to have you fight the controls like your character? So you're talking about like getting over it and stuff like that, where you have to like you're literally fighting the actual control scheme. I would get triggered so fast. I'm sorry. Like I would actually get hard filtered by a game like that. Like I get that's what it's going for. So if somebody liked that and somebody was down for the challenge, go for it. But me, no, I would mold so hard. I would mold so hard. I would not be pleased with myself how much I would be molding. I would be molding to the level of like, this is me driving in like intense traffic level of molding. Which I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard me drive in the car, but if I'm in Discord while I'm driving, I am almost always complaining about other drivers. It's just the way I am. So put me in like bumper to bumper traffic. Yeah, that would be the equivalent of me playing this game. My boyfriend also likes the Metroid series. It's really interesting. I have to watch you play it on stream. Yeah, the Metroid series is one that as a kid I always wanted to get into, but I think like most of them came out back on like N64. And so the only opportunity I would have had to buy them would have been the GameCube ones. And I don't know why I didn't get the GameCube ones, but I didn't. So I never like properly got into the Metroid series until like, you know, once I was a streamer here. Actually, I wanted to play the other Prime entries, but they're not like easily accessible anymore. Kinda really wanted to watch you play Traffic Simulator 9000 X2. No, you don't. No Metroid game on N64, was there not? Was it Super Nintendo that you have to go all the way back to then? Incorrect, actually. We've triggered Ash. He was lurking. Cooking Mama? What? You should try Super Metroid someday. I would love to, honestly. I would love to play the old school Metroid games. Like I at least with the Prime remaster, I had fun with that. I think like with Metroid Dread, I also had a lot of fun with it. The only issue that I remember not having fun with Metroid Dread was the one room where I got locked in, where it had like the almost like Super Smash Brothers like podiums, and there was like the dip in the middle, and you had to fight like the two jumping dudes that had like spears or whatever the fuck it was. I don't remember. It was like something to that equivalent, right? And so it's like you come in from here and you have to fight these two assholes, and you're locked in the room until you beat both of them. That was the only point where I was like, this is unfun. Otherwise, I had a blast with that game. I loved it. Yeah, the problem that I have is like it's easy to recommend those games, but I don't know how I go back and play them right now. Because I think the only way to play them without emulating them, and we all know what'll happen if you try to emulate a Nintendo game, Nintendo will send their lawyers to your house and get the Pope to excommunicate you. But I think it's like the only way to play them is to actually like sign up for their like their classic collection, which is like a subscription based thing. And it's like, I don't really want to do that. Which is exactly why they're doing it. Would you call them the Lords of Leaping, Cad? Yes. It'd be two Lords of Leaping. Brace for the fury of 1,000 banana boats? Damn. So wait, was there really legitimately no Metroid game on N64? Chat, we're gonna look this up. So I assume Super Metroid was literally Super Nintendo. Yep. Was Fusion also Super Nintendo? Is Game Boy Advance? I never really understood that. Like, I get that Game Boy was popular, but I never really understood why they went, like, so hard in that regard. It was GameCube, so they basically skipped it. That's wild. Also wild is it looks like Dread was actually their best-selling game. Not their highest rated, though. It's actually pretty darn close. If FGO did a homage to Metroid, what do you mean if? Cab, would you watch a Metroid animated series in the style of the first 2 seasons of Castlevania? Yeah, it sounds amazing. I mean, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be in the style of like Castlevania. Raises finger, pauses, lowers it. You know, like, and I guarantee you could be like, oh no, Cat, this is actually referencing other things. And I'm like, you're right. But, but it's not that different, right? And that's clearly the aesthetic they're going for. Hey, Mr. Fino, thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody. I was just talking to chat about the Metroid games, and someone in chat was asking me, like, hey, if FGO ever did a homage to Metroid. And I was like, what do you mean, if? So I had to pull up Burrito Mar. But welcome, everybody. Hope you guys had a good stream. What were you guys up to, Mr. Fino? Ooh, playing some ZA. Nice. How you liking it? We were also talking a little bit about Pokemon today. Did you get chased by the, was it Megastarmy? Certain version of Burrito is essentially Samus. That would actually be a really cool thing if they did something like that. Pretty solid, much better than I expected. That's what I was talking to people about. Is like, I think there's like some legitimate complaints about the game and its budget and its graphics and stuff, but like everybody I've heard talking about the actual gameplay seems to like it. So in that regard, it seems like the new active system is a relative hit. Though I do think there's probably people that'll still prefer a turn-based style of thing. Burrito Monte? Oh my god, please. Yeah, it's definitely... I actually, like, between Burrito Mart and Bradamonte, get them mixed up sometimes a little bit, especially due to how similar they are. I still prefer the turn-based, but it's nice to see him try it. Yeah, I don't have any issue with, like, a game trying a new style. Like, you know, we've talked about the Final Fantasies before and how they switched over to a more active style. And it's like, I don't hate the idea that they want to do action versions of, like, Final Fantasy stuff. I just also, at the same time, like, wish they would kind of go back to the turn-based style. I feel like if they did that, they would gain back a lot of, like, credibility with some of the people that they've kind of crossed over the years. I just hate the hand holding they have in the game. What? Pokemon? I mean, it is for kids. So, like, having hand holding in a game made for kids is not, like, bad, I think. And a little bit, as somebody that I wasn't, like, a huge fan of Pokemon growing up, and now as an adult, I've tried to get into it a little bit. I think one of the most daunting things about Pokemon is just the sheer number of Pokemon. And then obviously there's like the lexicon of moves, there's all the element types, so there's a whole lot of like knowledge that you need in order to be able to get into Pokemon. So if they want to do some hand holding, I think that's actually a good thing. And yeah, what they probably should just do is it's like, oh, if you don't want to like get educated on that, it's like just allow them to skip. The main problem is the tutorials aren't optional. Okay, yeah, see that I agree with. It's like it should be. There's like 18 types now or some shit. Like I said, I can't keep it straight. I remember when I was playing Scarlet and Violet, people had to give me like the entire like element chart because I was just sitting there and I had to keep asking chat otherwise. I've played Pokemon before. Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible idea, right? Because it's not like they literally like produce a new game every year. So it's one of those things where I think that would be a fairly easy thing to make commonplace. Well, being put on rails is also not that crazy. There's a lot of games that do that sort of stuff to you. I feel like kids would skip the tutorials no matter what if they were optional and be lost. I can't argue that point. I can only say that that's a, like, well, you did that to yourself. Right? Like you skipped it. Oh, how do I play the game? Well, you skipped it. So it's like, I guess it's one of those things where you have to like put it in the menu somewhere where they can go back and re-access it again. But I think with today's current generation, they'll just immediately go to like YouTube or TikTok to find the answer. It's how I connect with my two brothers. Oh, interesting. I used to play video games a lot with my brother, but then he had to become a dad. He's always busy, so it is what it is. I love my brother, but I still remember, like, I used to play like Call of Duty and stuff with him, and that was like, honestly, that was the most fun I had playing Call of Duty. Remember when older games were more creative in integrating tutorials? Yeah, there's a lot of like, I forget what the term is for it, and if anyone in chat remembers, please let me know. But there's a term for like when you work something seamlessly in, and it's not like jarring anymore. Organic? No, there's an actual term for it, and I've heard it once before. It's a really big word. Is it diegetic? Let me see. I don't know if that's the right word, but it definitely is in that same vein, right? So it's like, yeah, it's the idea is that like you've worked it in so it feels like it's part of the world. So the idea behind this is like, you know, like the infamous yellow paint, right? That's the problem that everybody has with yellow paint. And people are not wrong to complain about it. In old games, they would still do these exact same hand-holding things. They just were smarter about it, and they made it something like that fit the game, that fit the world. So I think that's where people complain, is like when you're in a fantasy setting and you're like climbing a mountain and you see bright yellow spray paint on the side of the mountain, and you're like, this doesn't look like it should be here at all. Right? It's not the problem that they're hand holding you necessarily. It's that it's just jarring and obtrusive. Like, so yeah, if they want to make it more diegetic in that regard and make it actually like seamless, then that's good. In other words, you make it stand out, but you don't make it stick out like a sore thumb. It looks like it belongs in the world. It's why Breath of the Wild is amazing. And a lot of the like old school games had stuff like that. As Megamind would say, it's all about presentation. Yes. But yeah, I think that's the idea behind that. Is you get tutorials to be more diegetic, and then that way they make more sense. They feel like they fit. It's the entire premise behind, like, you could just have a tutorial pop up, or you can be like somebody getting trained by someone, and it's like them spelling the tutorial out for you. Usually that's a nicer touch, and it makes people feel like they're playing part of the story rather than they're being told how to play the game. So I do agree. It's like tutorials, in a weird way, there is a fine art to that sort of thing. Only tell me what's different here option. Well, see, that's the problem, Weird. If you did that, the problem is then the devs would have to remember what's different between the two games. And then the other issue exists of what if there's not anything different? Like has kind of been the issue before. Was my final opinion on Lizzie the Rock? I thought she was really good. Not I gotta have. And again, you guys can check the video for the actual numbers. But I do think she's actually pretty quality. Gaming dad is best dad. Yeah, the issue with my brother is that he is actually like Mr. Mom. So he is the stay-at-home person in the relationship now. So he does a lot. And he has 3 kids. So it's like his free time is nothing. And I understand how that's a thing. And it sucks. I feel bad for him. I'm sure to a degree it's like he's happy in that regard. It's not like he hates his life or anything. But I feel bad that he doesn't get to like have much of a life on his own at all. Even if it would just be like, hey man, spend like half an hour with me like every other week. Okay, chat. Let me see who's on. I'm going to end it here tonight. And again, thank you, Mr. Fino, for the raid. Welcome, everybody. I just kind of... We got done with FGO around like 10, and I've just been sitting here talking FGO and various other topics with people for about an hour. Kind of chilling out since I have... I missed yesterday and wanted to kind of just catch up with everyone. Aha! Let me send you guys over to Mr. Ventos. He's on right now. Pay it forward. Again, Ventos is a good buddy of mine. He's a fellow streamer. He loves his FGO. He is doing phantom solos of all of the Grail fronts. So you guys might be interested in that. And I should be back tomorrow. I don't know what we'll do tomorrow. I'll come up with something. But again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for watching, for supporting all the time. Thank you to the lurkers, to the subscribers, to the followers. You name it. I appreciate you guys. So anyways, go give Ventos my love and have a good one.